That funk, that good, that nasty.
Give it to me.
Folks, we're live.
We are live.
Give it to me.
You missed it 5 seconds ago. We were rapping, me and Adam. But today's
that wasn't
podcast.
good. That wasn't rap. That was Power Funk with Rick James.
Is that what it was?
It was Rick James.
All right, thank you, Caroline.
Today's doc is on fire this morning.
I was in
by
an
the way.
elevator with Rick James once.
Were you were also in an elevator with Britney Spears once. Do you remember that? You came back. You're like, I just saw Britney Spears.
That's right.
That's crazy.
At when we were staying at Palazzo at the whatever that property was.
Yeah, exactly
at the
right.
Rio.
And I.
You need to spend more time in elevators.
After you got done
but you know what was
doing,
funny? You know what was funny? I didn't do the little tourist thing or the fan thing. Hey, Brett.
Our kids go to the same school together.
That's what I said. I said, hey, Sierra Canyon, PTA, how are you doing? And she goes, oh, hi, great. Doing her best to pretend that she recognized me.
Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, today, listen.
She's
Today's
not watching case.
No, but it was a PTA.
She's
honestly.
officially free, FY. Thank God she's free, and she can do whatever she wants to do today, which is great news because people want to see what she does when she's free. Freedom is a good thing. I don't know if you know that or not.
It's great to have
certain
options.
parties like freedom, certain parties like force. We like freedom here. And FYI, if
All
you're
about the
here,
freedom. Yep.
if you're here,
Cue
we gotta.
I'm free. Bum, 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 bum.
We gotta.
We're
Tom's
gonna
a
have
little
to
bit.
stop singing. Is what we're gonna have to stop
Tom's been doing it all morning. So let's get right into it. So here's what we got. Listen, by the time the podcast's over today, Danielle's gonna make you smarter. Tom's going to make you think about certain companies to invest in or not. There's a 20% chance Adam's going to make you be a cat man, maybe a little bit more of a fan of cats. Who knows?
Yeah.
And Danielle dressed up just for you today.
I did.
Yeah, she dressed up just for
I am
you
the Catwoman today, just for you.
The high fashion cat.
I did
print.
not board the plane from Dallas yesterday without my leopard.
Thank you for thinking of me when you
You're
were
very
packing up
welcome.
to come here.
She gave a hint on Twitter, but you're not
I
on
did.
Twitter.
You're
You're
not
only on
on
Instagram.
I am on Twitter. However, I don't check it that often. But I'm
All it said
pleasantly
was,
surprised.
All I said was I was bringing Adam a surprise.
Well, you know who's a big fan of your outfit? Our entire audience. I'm sure they're loving everything that you're wearing.
No, they're not all cat people. I'm
Well,
sorry.
they're Danielle people.
They are Danielle people.
Okay, well, we'll take that.
But it all matches when we get to the economy. The claws are coming out here. So.
Oh,
That's true.
business.
Okay, so Danielle's got
Great
three.
metaphor.
Danielle's got three charts she's going to show us. She will show me two of them. It's absolutely sick. What's going on with independent voters, level of inequality, number of Americans quitting jobs, why. She'll give you a complete different angle. There's a bacon data we're going to look at today.
We're gonna look at-
bacon,
we're gonna talk
bacon,
about
bacon.
bacon.
That's
Bacon.
right. And then we got
actual bacon or Kevin bacon?
No,
6 degrees?
actual,
Okay.
actual.
I hope your
bacon.
green bean casserole does not involve bacon as a base. Let's just say that in front of Thanksgiving, okay?
Well, as a former rabbi yourself, that this is
a rabbi who has converted to bacon. I love
that's right.
bacon.
Okay,
Mr. Mistophocles was a rabbi?
Staples Center in LA is being renamed Crypto.com Arena. The contract is massive. We'll talk about that. It's 20 years. Thanksgiving essentials are out of stock. Amazon has slashed the cost of its Go Cashierless store technology by 96% since 2017. Rivian leaps past Volkswagen valuation as EV mania rages. By the way, when you see the numbers on that, it's ludicrous
It's
what's
bigger
going
than
on there.
Volkswagen. Oh,
yeah.
my God.
Fox News dominates basic cable. MSNBC finishes behind 29 networks. Amongst advertisers' coveted demo, China becomes the richest country in the world, overtaking U.S., by the way. Texas church under fire for screaming, "Let's go, Brandon" chants. Caught on video. Psaki confronted claims no economist is predicting higher inflation from massive spending bill. Joe Biden gets terrible news after court is chosen to adjudicate his vaccine mandate. U.S. COVID cases are starting to rise again during holiday season. Report Biden to order diplomatic boycott of 2022 Beijing Olympics. McConnell's got some stuff that's going on that he can really be opinionated about for the Biden administration. Former Clinton advisor talks about most Democrats will be wiped out after 2022 elections. Then we have a certain interview I saw on a Chinese dissident, former political prisoner in China, warns Americans you're already in the authoritarian state. You just don't know about it. So we'll go into that as well. But first things first, let's get into the Thanksgiving essentials since it's around the corner a couple weeks from now. So if you want to go to page 3, Thanksgiving essentials. Let's take a look at this here with Thanksgiving. What we got going on page 3. Thanksgiving essentials are out of stock. CNN story. During the first week of November, whole bird, frozen, fixed weight turkey were in stock at a rate of 64% on average across national retailers. This time last year, that figure was around 86%. Availability of packaged pie was roughly 68% last week compared to 78% in 2020. Liquid gravy with an in-stock rate of 73% is down 12%. compared to last year. And cranberry sauce with availability of 79% is down from 89% same time last year. Retailers typically like to have around 95% in-stock rate overall. This year, stores aren't anywhere close to that. A number of factors are contributing to Thanksgiving staples disappearing from store shelves, including supply chain ruptures and an unexpected spike in demand. Danielle, why is this happening?
Well, people, look, the media has been going nuts with this. So everybody's saying, buy early, buy now, buy now, buy now. So everybody's shopping for Thanksgiving early. So you can't stock the way you did in prior Thanksgivings if you're a big supermarket chain, if people are not going to buy all the way into next week, if they're freaking out and buying and hoarding in advance. I mean, I'm going to have to make my own gravy this year, which will be fabulous. But I was amazed at the grocery store a few nights ago at the sheer number of empty shelves that I saw around the store, but I did see one area of the store where it was fully stocked.
What's that?
That was bacon.
Really?
Well, the bacon's on the shelf. It's not flying off the shelves.
Do we have a chart to show what's going on with bacon?
We have a chart. We have a bacon chart.
Let's pull that up and take a look.
It's a big deal. Bacon chart.
Okay, look at the 2020 price of bacon was $5.83 a pound on average in 2020. So you've had a little bit of inflation in pork bellies here the last few years.
It was a flat decade for bacon mostly.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. It's from $5.54 to $5.83.
Yeah. So when I was at the grocery store a few nights ago, Oscar Mayer bacon, 1 pound, $9.99.
Be quiet.
$9.99.
From $5.83 to $9.99.
$9.99. But don't tell Psaki because inflation doesn't exist.
So let me ask you.
No economist
she was misunderstood too. What she said
no
was
economist can go from $5.83 to $9.99 and call it no inflation.
Here's a question for you. How much of this has to do with what's going on at Long Beach, LA? How much of this is that? Is any of this imported or is this in the States?
Most of this is in the States.
So this has nothing to do with what's going on at the port.
We're not exactly, buying
turkey or
Chinese
gravy.
Cranberry sauce.
That's right.
Just, no.
So that's here.
Let's hope not.
So
I will tell you that one of the largest pork producers in America is owned by the Chinese. So they're probably enjoying sticking it to us.
So I guess the question becomes, is somebody could say, well, the reason why this is happening is because so many things are sitting on the containers where a year ago was $2,000, now it's $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 that China's charging. But this is not that. So if it isn't that, then what is it? Then what is it, though?
No, it's panic buying. It's people who are.
I got it.
It's people who are. The media is all over this, and actually, you know what? Refreshingly, because I will say right here now publicly, I am a former Bloomberg columnist as of this week, because I'd been hired by Bloomberg to be a contrarian. And after Biden was elected, if I wrote anything about the economy that was even perceived as being remotely negative, even though I'm not writing negative, positive, or in between, I'm just reporting what's going on, it was rejected by editorial.
Get out of here.
So for a long time, for a long time, we've seen a lot of individuals in the media try and kind of cover up what's going wrong with this economy. All you have to do is look at Biden's approval rating to see what, if you put Biden's approval rating against the rate of inflation, it's pretty damn apparent what's going on.
So even Bloomberg is not letting stories against Biden go up.
They weren't against Biden. They could be. I submitted a story that said that because, the state of Texas froze solid, that we were going to see plastic prices increase more, and that was going to put more pressure on producers because they had to shut down so much capacity, and it took them so long to bring it back online after the Ice-Mageddon. And they're like, that's a little iffy. And I'm like, I'm just saying that there's going to be price increases.
So what's actually happening? Give us,
she's saying panic buying. She's saying panic buying.
But
with Bloomberg.
I'm saying what shifted is between now and then is there is an undeniability. You cannot deny bacon going from $5.83 last year to $9.99. The media can no longer ignore this story.
Right.
That's probably why MSNBC is ranked at the very bottom of the barrel, because they're doing everything that they can to not report the real news.
Okay. There's something big that's here. Right now this is Thanksgiving, and America does a good job of being charitable. If you look around America, we do a pretty good job when your local food bank says, we need some help, we need some support, and Americans will fill that. And the BizDoc Babe, my wife, this is the time of year where we'll do a carload at Costco, and we'll go to the food bank, and we drop it off at the food bank, the kind of things that they need that are long shelf life things. And she was at Costco, and she said, she says, I'm not buying the 6.2%, Tom. I said, why? She said, I know what I buy, and I buy large, shrink packs and everything of the foodstuffs. And I just paid $440 for for this food bank run, and it was normally, $3.60, $3.65.
Yeah.
She said, that's not 6.5%. And says, and I'm buying the staples that are necessary, not just a bunch of
And
high
that's the thing.
sodium canned
That's-
green
Who's
beans.
saying this, by the
That's
way?
exactly
The BizDoc Babe, my wife, because at
So-
The
Thanksgiving
lady who
time,
shall remain nameless.
So-
No, this
she has
is-
no name.
All
That's
right,
the
so-
Biz
this
Doc
is
Babe.
Thanksgiving, trying to do nice things, buy a carload of groceries and take it to the food
Well,
bank.
that's very
and then,
sweet of her.
And
So-
noticing that it's not 6.2%. It's like you're talking bacon from $5 to
but that's
$9.99.
what you just said is the person that's feeling the most is the person that's going and buying the market regularly. And when you get in a routine of what you buy, you know what you're buying. It's not like your buying routine changes dramatically.
Bingo.
Week to week to week, year to year to year, unless if you're having a new baby or newborn, which you guys haven't had that. So it's been a very steady, same lifestyle. That's interesting from 360 to 440.
So Bank of America came out this morning with fresh data that shows that if you adjust for inflation,
Yeah.
that grocery shopping in America over the past year has turned negative. The amount of groceries that Americans are buying,
Consumption, I mean.
consumption itself, when you
Wow.
adjust it for inflation, has turned negative year over year.
What does that mean exactly?
That means that
They're buying less.
They're buying less.
That's simple.
Just people buying
But
less.
here's the thing. The whole thought about the other day I sent something on Twitter about the fact that gas prices are going higher. Inflation is this. Inflation is that.
I retweeted that.
Yeah, I know you did. But somebody from Canada commented and said, "Well, that's because you guys consume too much. You need to consume less." Here in Canada, we don't consume as much as you guys consume. You guys need to be more minimalist, right? So that's what he's saying. But you hear a lot of politicians today also going behind that message, that rhetoric saying that Americans need to consume less. It's not healthy to do this. It's not healthy to do that. So my question would be, how much of this is planned? How much of this is a side effect of something they did? And how much of it is accidental?
A lot of it is too much stimulus. Look, I was at Highland Park Village.
So would you say intentional, or would you say just the side effect of something we did not know that's going to end
It
up
was
being
the side
here?
effect of
Okay.
fiscal spending on
Fair enough.
steroids.
So it wasn't intentional.
And
We did not know we'd
and
be
Fed
here.
policy that's gone straight to the 1%. So I was at Highland Park Village last week, the hoity-toityest little place to shop. I was going there because I was going to get one thing on sale at my little store that still actually remains there, even though it's not Chanel.
Sprinkles cupcakes?
I think Sprinkles is gone.
Sorry, Biz Doc.
A lot of the lowest end stores have gone because the rich have gotten so much richer. There were lines around Fendi, there were lines around Dior, there were lines around Chanel, there were lines around Hermes. The Rolex store opened the day before, sold out in one day.
Yeah.
Lines around the Rolex store, even though they had no merchandise, they were just going in to try and order a Rolex. So I mean, if you think about, there's a chart that we've got that talks about wealth disparity.
Can you pull up that chart, please?
And what the top 1% has. And they're conspicuously consuming. And then you've got some Canadians saying that we should drive less, when if you're the average working Joe, you have to live out in the exurbs and commute way in if you're going to be
No
a busboy in the
question.
middle of the city.
No question.
You can't afford rent unless you're way the hell out there. So you have to consume more gas just to get to work. And used car prices are up, by the way, 30%. More than that year over year.
Because they have working
Before we
chips.
move on
The blue
from
one.
Thanksgiving, because I think that's the most essential topic. I'm sure we'll talk on this. Question roundtable. Then I have a point here. I know that's ironic. What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
We're here. Christmas, we're out of
You're
town.
here. Okay.
Christmas, we're out
What
of
are you
town.
guys
But
doing for Thanksgiving?
We're here.
We're staying in the home.
You're spending it with your family, with your kids.
All 4 kids have the whole week off. We're just
BizDoc,
taking
the
advantage.
BizDoc babe, the BizDoc kids.
Well, BizDoc mom is still around, 83, so we got the
Babs?
whole... Yep, Babs.
Yeah, you
my sister's coming to Dallas. We're getting everybody together around Babs for
Okay, so
Thanksgiving.
there's a common theme here. You're going to spend it with your
Yeah.
family.
Correct.
And, well, we're having
No
we're
vac-
having-
yeah, no
my
quick
best
ski
friend-
johns,
Okay.
nothing.
My
All
best
right.
friend and her mother are
Last
coming, so we're
year,
going to be a party of 11.
Last year, many of us weren't able to spend Thanksgiving with our families. Yeah?
True.
Many of us. Here's my opinion here. This might be controversial. Thanksgiving food, the dried cranberry, the salty ass turkey, and the gravy, overrated. The most overrated food on the market. So if food's a little more expensive and you need to shift your philosophy on what you're eating, I'm sorry. Like the fried turkey, what's it called? When you fry the turkey, what's it called?
It's called a
Tyler?
fried turkey.
Okay, but there's something like a chicken, goose, hen, whatever.
That's different.
Whatever
You're
that's called.
mixing the fried
Here's
turkey
my point.
with
Okay,
turducken.
wait a
Point
minute,
number
wait a
one.
minute, wait a minute,
Point
wait a
number
minute,
one.
wait a minute. Okay.
Thanksgiving
He's talking about
food
turducken.
overrated. Number two, what's not overrated is the fact that we're going to be spending time with our families.
That's
That's the most important.
That's very
It didn't
sweet.
happen. It didn't happen. So if I don't care if we have steak on Thanksgiving. I don't care if we have chicken on Thanksgiving.
Adam, do you need a hug?
If bacon's.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
I'm,
Wait a
I'm
minute.
happy. I feel good.
So
I
you
get
want the
spend it with my
families to
family
get
this year.
together, but you want to determine what we eat.
Eat whatever you want. I don't give a shit if you have turkey
How
or not. I
governmental
don't
of
care.
you.
Okay,
I don't care.
But-
I want you to spend it with your family.
All right,
So
but-
I'm just saying, all these prices that are overrated. Cranberries too much.
I don't know what to
Crimea
do with
River.
this.
Don't have cranberry
What
this year.
the hell are you
I'm just
talking
saying.
about?
Adam, everybody at this table can
Yeah.
afford probably the company to buy a case of cranberry
Exactly.
for a decade.
That's why I don't
No,
feel
no,
bad
no,
for
no,
anyone.
But
no,
this
no,
isn't about you, buddy.
I'm not saying it's about me. I'm
a-
saying it's about
this is-
America.
This is about
Spend it with your family.
This is
Who
about
cares
the
about
husband
turkey?
and wife making. There's certain things called rituals. One of the things I appreciate about your the religion,
Yes.
Judaism, Jewish. You guys have a lot of rituals,
Very
right?
symbolic.
America also has a lot of rituals.
Okay.
Thanksgiving is a ritualistic type of a holiday where we get together and do certain things. Those things include turkey. Those things include gravy. Those things include great conversations. Those things include football games. Those things include
Cool.
people coming together.
She loves turkey.
Yeah.
Turkey rocks.
Turducken is what I'm talking about.
I know
turkey,
you're talking about a turducken,
duck, and
but,
chicken. That's
but
what I was
turkey
thinking of.
I mean, there's nothing better than eating too much turkey and then going on the couch and watching the Cowboys game.
but you see what you
and
just
like
said
going
there?
into a
Having-
food coma. It's
But listen,
part of the tradition.
Before the
Tryptophan.
Cowboys lose,
If-
The
eating too much
tryptophan
turkey
now.
might not be a good thing.
Full-on disclaimer for everybody listening. If Adam invites you to a Thanksgiving party, do not
Do
go.
not
There's
go.
not going to be food.
No.
There won't be food.
There'll be-
He'll have like turkey, you know.
There'll be
the stuff.
sushi.
It'd be like, we're
there'll
going to
be-
have
there'll be-
hamburgers, hot dogs.
All good.
Do your
America.
Thanksgiving
I'll have
party,
hot dogs.
dog.
I don't care.
Because
No,
turkey
you're gonna go
rocks. I'm gonna have to tweet this
Family
out after.
over
Hashtag
stuffing.
turkey rocks.
Oh my gosh.
Family
so
over stuff.
No, no,
Are you
no,
done
no.
with your
I'm just saying. Someone needed to say that Thanksgiving food is overrated. I'm sorry.
Or the only person needed to say it because nobody agrees with you. But
Do
continue.
a poll. Is
I can't
Thanksgiving
pull
food
because
overrated?
dislike
Hang
is
on,
gone.
hang on.
I'm looking at
What do you
dislike.
mean?
The dislike button is officially
see it
gone.
right here.
I don't.
No,
How
no,
many
this-
dislikes?
Boom. One dislike. I got you.
You see it. I don't see it on my end.
Why?
Dislike is fully gone. Look at this.
Okay, can
I
we-
don't have dislike anymore. Okay, can you show us the?
Hey, Pat, can we
so
get in the
weird.
DeLorean and like go back to the future 5 minutes to the
Yeah,
charts?
go ahead.
Because I think we had charts and analysis, and it upset Adam, and so he went on that rant.
No, Adam is. I think. Listen.
He's confused.
I'm
by
going
the-
to say the things that people don't want to hear. Okay, I'm
This-
sorry.
No,
This is
Thanks.
confusing. He can't
Thanks.
think it. There's
No.
too much
I see
cat in
cat
the
lady
room.
over here.
Stop.
I'm getting
Danielle-
like
Hashtag cancel turkey. That's Adam's hashtag today.
Danielle, you show us what people really don't want to hear.
Right. So this is Federal Reserve data. Those cute little green bars show who owns stocks in America. So the top 1% owns the majority, more than 15% of the stock market.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yep. And the bottom 50%, you can barely see the green bar. So
What does that tell you? When you, I have my own thoughts.
And by the
What
way,
does
the
that tell
bottom
you?
green bar is the 401k they're supposed to sell.
Bottom
to
50%,
feed
they
their family.
have.
they're living paycheck to paycheck and on
The
credit.
only thing they're relying on is their house as their.
Okay, the 50 to 90%, there's
Yeah.
your middle income. That's middle income America right
Okay.
there. They only have 10% of their holdings in stocks, but the vast majority of their wealth is in their home. That blue bar, and you've had the Federal Reserve jacking up speculation. I just this morning I was talking to a gal whose homeowner's insurance is going up 40% this year here in Florida. I'm like, what did you say?
Yeah.
What did you say? How much is your insurance going to go up?
Yeah.
So what is the average retired couple living on a fixed income supposed to do? Even if they did the 30-year mortgage and paid it off before they retired, which that's kind of retirement 101, what are they going to do if on their fixed income their property tax goes, their insurance goes up 40%? I mean, people are going to lose their homes. This is insanity.
But Danielle, when we look at this, the top 1% today makes what? Is it 465? Is that the number today? Is it? Can you pull up the top 1% income? I
something
think it's
like
like
that.
$465 to $500,000.
But they own the majority of stocks.
They do. Go to top 1% earners. Top 1% earners. There you
Danielle,
go.
there's one thing that
See what top 1% is.
this chart is not telling us. What percentage of Americans do you
What?
think actually own
No,
stocks?
that's not right. That's not right.
That
the top 1%.
I thought that that's too low. You're thinking
No.
the top 10%.
No. I'm thinking, so the 1%, the number I remember was 465. So the top 1% represents about 1.3 million households who roughly make more than $500K a year. That's about right. Okay, $500K a year. What does the top 10% make today? Put top 10%, just add a zero. I want to say it's $250,000 because top 20 is making six figures.
I'm going to say less than that.
So top 10%
Only
makes
15% of America makes over $100,000.
Okay,
15%.
So top 10% makes. This is 2018. So 158 and 20% makes six figures.
Now, when you roll the top 10%, and which was not on that chart, when you're talking about the top 10% of Americans, they own 89% of the stock market.
The top 10% owns 89%.
Go back to that
I
chart.
believe that.
No, it's not in the chart. That particular.
I just don't want to see the chart.
I believe that. I believe the fact that the top 10% owns. Go back one more. There you go.
No,
okay.
Yeah.
So the top 10%. Okay. So this whole concept. Let me ask the question and see what you're going to say about this. So this whole concept where they say the rich is getting richer and the poor is getting poor. Okay. The rich keeps getting richer. The poor keeps getting poor.
The Rolex store sold out the first day it was opened.
Fully get it. But what I'm asking you is, how much of that has to do because the rich invest into the market, the rich gets higher returns on their money, and the poor spends habitually, meaning there are more spenders on the bottom than there are investors at the top.
They have to spend. I mean, if you look at the flip side of it. The top 1%, their net worth is 10% in real estate.
Okay.
They don't care what's happening with real estate prices. They don't care what the price of a gallon of gas is. All of this is irrelevant to their budgets. Completely irrelevant to their budgets.
Your wealth shouldn't be tied to the house you live in.
You're correct.
Yeah.
You're correct. But the bottom people, all they're doing is paying the rent and getting by. That's it. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And we're watching credit card spending go up.
I don't know if I buy that. So yesterday Robert Kiyosaki was interviewing me, and I said, so he's doing a show. There was like 30,000 people that are going to be on there.
Patrick, stop. The lowest income earners in America are going to spend 22% less this holiday season.
Here's my point to you. So he goes and he says, when he was a kid, he was working for the rich dad, who the rich dad would say, I want you to go and collect rent from all my renters, from all these properties that I own. So Robert's job was to go knock on the doors and collect checks. So he'd go in, say, hey, I'm collecting rent. Oh, we don't have the money. You got to give us another 15 days. He said, but you got a big screen TV. But you got everything over here. So it goes to the next place and the next place and the next place and the next place and the next place. This is the part where I'm in the Army. I'm 18 years old. This guy named Jeff, who's a good friend of mine. Jeff says to me, Pat, save 10% of your money. I don't save 10% of my money. I buy Jose Cuervo, Jack Daniels, and I go straight to a club called Connections, and I spent every dime. I was broke every 2 weeks. I was fully broke. 2.5 years later, when we ETS, the guy's got $20,000 in the bank. He's the same rank as me. We live in the same place. He's got a nicer car. Everything was nicer. The guy had $25,000 in the bank. This is how much I came out of the Army with a Mitsubishi Eclipse, twin turbo, nice car, but broke like you wouldn't believe. So for me, I think if we constantly just say, the poor and middle income, they have to spend their money, they have to spend their money, they have to spend their money. I don't know if I agree with that.
What you're describing is the middle. What you're describing are millennials. What you're describing is why 1 in 4 millennials still lives with their parents because they're spending every single dime on experientials. You're not describing the lowest income earners. The lowest income earners
part of the lowest.
Are being eaten alive by rental inflation.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
But when you say lowest income, you're talking what? Less than $25,000 a year? What are you saying?
No, it's closer to less than $50,000 a year.
50?
But this particular cohort spends 40 to 50% of their after-tax income on housing.
And the max number you should spend is 30%. 40 to 50% of their
after-tax income on renting
That's
an apartment.
Insane. That should be 25 to 30% max.
30% max.
But again, the Fed's been out there jacking up home prices with all this speculation.
I'm not disagreeing with you there. But look, if we constantly, there's two sides to the coin here, right? One side of it is what? One side of it is, you're right. We keep printing money. Shit keeps going up. We're not affected by this table, but maybe Kim is when she goes shopping. Instead of spending $360, she's spending $440. $80 on $360 is what, around 22%? She's feeling the hike. It's not 6.2%.
And this is
it's
a donation.
More like 22%.
But we keep making the donation.
But this is the part. This is the part I got for you. So for me, so when is the last time anybody got up and talked about the fact that, hey, let's start saving a little bit better money? Let's change some of our habits. Let's actually start thinking long term. Let's actually start thinking about financial education.
Wait, there's a story in here about
how little people have saved. Do you need the Cuervo at $27 for a big liter?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm kind of with you because I think there's a little bit of consumption in there that you don't need $27 for a big thing of Cuervo.
I was at In-N-Out Burger with my friend. I'm at In-N-Out Burger with my friend, and we typically would order lemonade, and lemonade was $2.29 medium, right? And we sat there, we said, listen, we sat down with this one guy, he says, why are you guys even ordering lemonade? First of all, when you put that ice in it, the whole thing is ice. The lemonade is really 40% of it. You're going to pay $2.29 for it. That's a waste of money. How many times you order this every day you go to lunch? We're like, every day. So twice a day. That's $5 a day. You're wasting your damn money. So here's what we started doing. He said, this is the trick of what you do. He said, and you can save $200 a month. This is when I'm making 36 grand a year. I'm broke. He says, go in, take a cup, ask for a cup. The plastic cup is typically the see-through because it's differentiation because they're taking inventory of the real cups. He says, take the cup. Go get water. It's free. Put ice. Take sweetener. Take lemon. Squeeze a lemon in there. That's free lemonade. You just saved yourself $2.29 times.
Hell yeah!
You know
Save
what
that
we did?
money.
You want to take some? We did that for 2 years.
So we agree. We're on the same page when it comes to the financial illiteracy that often hurts the lowest income earners. But right now, if you add up what rent and gas
I don't disagree with
and
that.
essentials cost, they're negative. They're net negative because of what's happened to inflation. But you're also, like I said, you're also describing millennials who are still living at home with their parents because they still get up every day and go buy a $7 latte and think that that's a normal way to budget. And it's asinine. And they wonder why they're in their parents' basement still.
Well, to Pat's credit, the story you said that you were broke, you were spending it on Cuervo, but your buddy saved up 20 grand. You guys were making the exact same amount of money, yes?
Exact same money.
This is what I say all the time.
He had a nicer car.
Okay.
He had a nicer car that he took your F-150. He had a nice thing going on for himself.
And how much money were you making at this time? Solve for inflation.
$1,200, $1,100.
Okay, so you're
per
making
month, working 80 hours a week.
So
I'm in the Army. I'm broke.
Okay, gotcha. But you're making 20 grand a year in the Army, whatever. You don't have to pay for
Give or
housing.
take, yes.
So listen, some people that don't understand is there's actually formulas to this. There's a reason that your buddy who was making the exact same amount of you had money and you were broke. Is because there's something called a budget or a game plan for your money.
I mean, we've
there's
got
something called the 50-30-20 rule.
American workforce, blah, blah, blah.
There you go.
Does not have enough in savings.
So the 50-30-20 rule is 50% of your income should go to your needs, 30% should go to your wants, 20% should go to your financials. Savings are paying off debt. The problem was even if rent is a little more expensive, sure.
A little? It's up 15%.
Okay, but even if it is more expensive, the wants start taking the place of your savings or paying off debt. Because if you don't have a lot of money coming in or a lot of money left over, you sure as hell want to get some new clothes or you want to look good or you want to drive a nice car.
Deloitte & Touche did a survey just a few weeks ago. They surveyed all Americans and said, what are you going to spend this holiday season? The highest income earners said, we're going to take some really nice vacations. We're going to head out of town. The average higher income earner is going to spend 15% more this holiday season. The lowest income earners in America are going to spend 22% less this holiday season because their essentials cost so much they can't buy what they want.
Okay, so if inflation is here,
that's a byproduct of bad policies.
It's a byproduct of really bad policies that the Biden administration is
1,000,000% together.
Delusional about.
We're 1,000,000% together. But let me ask you a question. Let's go fast forward the next 10, 20 years.
Sure.
Okay. How many more presidents or Congress or Senate or governor or whatever we're going to have that's going to come up with bad policies? What is the likelihood of more shitty policies over the next 2 decades?
105%.
Yeah. I mean, both parties, when they're in power, spend like drunken sailors.
So this is not a Republican-Democratic thing.
No.
There is bad policies coming near future, even more.
And
yes or no?
That's why you're seeing the rise of the middle.
And the more AOC gets power, the more likelihood is in the next 20 years a socialist is going to become a president.
I think that the middle is going to rise. I think that Virginia taught the country something about the silent majority that lives in the middle of this country.
No problem. But walking on eggshells and being afraid to voice your opinion about what you feel and, being concerned about defending some of Trump's policies, not necessarily Trump saying that Trump policy was actually good policy. You're so nervous that around your friends and peers, you end up, giving them more of a argument. But this is the point I'm trying to make to you.
I think the midterms are going to be a biblical bloodbath.
I think Obama's record is going to be broken, 63 seats, whatever. It's going to be.
I think Americans are up to here with AOC and progressives.
Here's my point to you. This is where I'm going with this. I come from a place of, I think bad policies are coming. It's a bipolar relationship, meaning one side of it is winter is coming. The other side of it is future looks bright. This is what's in my brain, okay? Yep. Winter is coming, future is bright. But here's the point I'm trying to make to you. So what is that one saying that says, save for a rainy day. No, it's not. You got to prepare for a rainy day. Okay, is this a rainy day today? It's a rainy day today. It's been a rainy season, right? It's been a pretty rainy season for the low and middle income, not the rich. For the low and middle income, it's a rainy season. Mm-hmm. Okay, what did you do the last 5-10 years? What did you do the last 5-10 years, 15 years? So how about Buffett right now that's sitting on $140 billion of cash and everybody's calling him an idiot and he's sitting there for 140? Why do you think he's sitting on cash? What do you think he's expecting to happen? You think he's a dummy? Like you think he's lost it? So the point I'm trying to make is fully agree this whole printing stuff they keep doing. I keep making more money, Danielle. I'm the richest I've ever been in my life. The more money they print, the more money I make. But the principles, values and principles are evergreen principles. We can't get away from that.
Look, coming into the pandemic, the vast majority of Americans who made $75,000 or more had no savings.
What does that tell you? What does that tell you?
No cushion, no rainy day. That they're living like you were living when you were making $36,000.
That's scary to me, though.
It is scary.
So guess what?
$75,000 of income, and you can't find 20% of it to set aside for debt and savings.
Let me ask you a question, Danielle. If you were in charge of banking, okay? If you were in charge of banking, if you're in charge of banking, let's talk about this. I'm actually curious to know what you say. What would you not do? Meaning, I want to buy a house. I make $75,000. I make $100,000. I make $150,000. I make $200,000. Pick the number. I'm not a millionaire, but I'm making anywhere between $80,000 to $250,000 a year.
You qualify to buy a house.
I qualify to buy a house. No matter how much income I make, what if you were in charge of banking, what would you expect my minimum down payment to be on a house?
20%.
20%.
What do you think?
Well, you can qualify for 3% these days.
See, I
Three and a half is FHA.
Adam, for once, listen to my question. Okay.
How much
if you are in charge, not you could qualify for 3%. If you ran banking, what would you want the minimum to be across the board?
For whatever reason, 20% is the de facto answer.
Well,
is
because
that the exact number that you need to have?
20% typically exemplifies a loan that's not going to go bad.
Okay.
And if you and it's loan to
What's
value.
What's the bank doing today? What's the bank doing today? What are they financing a $720,000 loan for today? Is it 20% down payment? Or is it 10%? Is it 5%?
You are actually.
You have a lot of options.
No, you right now in America we have record levels of home equity that's been built up.
Which means what? Which means what is a down payment? If I want to buy a house today, what is the expected down payment from me today?
It's expected to be 20%, and
I think that's low.
And that
you think that's low?
I think that's low. Yes, I think that's low. Let me explain why that's low. Listen. When I bought my first house, I did a story on Denver Post, and this was like a cover story type of deal.
I remember that story. Why you rent?
I'm like, here's how much money I make. Here's how much money I got. Here's what, and I'm renting, and here's why, okay? What are you talking about, real estate people, my friends who were realtors? What kind of an article is that? You're hurting our business. So that's what I believe in. I don't think you should buy a house if you can only afford to put 10 or 20% down payment. I think you should buy a house if you can put 50% down, but you only put 25%. I think this whole idea of trying to do financing of 5-10%. So what does that do to you? Here's what it does. So here's what the conversation happens with your son, with your daughter. You say, son, when you get married and you want to buy a house, down payment is 25%. If you do X, Y, Z, I'll come help you out with 12.5. You come up with the other 12.5. Fine. So now there is some kind of a involvement. Versus,
that's how it worked in the 70s and 80s, by the way.
That's how it's supposed to be when it comes down to those disciplines.
I completely agree.
So for me, I think if I'm in charge of banking, so if you think about families, I can only imagine being raised in your house with you and your husband. I would expect your sons were probably raised with high standards, right? Where if you adopted me at 12 years old and I came into your family and I'm coming from a divorced family where my mom couldn't control me anymore because I'm like, can do whatever the hell I want to do. If I came into your house, probably not going to like it. Probably going to be like, I can't stand this lady. Mm-hmm. Who the hell do you guys think you are talking to me like that? What do you mean I need to make my bill? What do you mean I need to do this? Perfect. I think we need to raise the standards in America.
I agree.
It's that simple. The expectation, the standards. So if we do that, that $72,000 a year person won't be broke. He'll have some savings.
Agreed.
Yeah, but the housing
so when the pandemic hit and
does not want to hear that.
Shut down,
Who doesn't want to hear that?
Realtors do not want to hear that.
I don't care if you don't want to hear that.
I know.
I don't care if you don't.
But they want someone who can pay the minimum entry fee, 3%, get them in.
Yeah.
And then when that mortgage defaults, sorry, we tried to help you out.
I think Pat's right. There's two things that are going on in America, and I'm going to talk really, really fast to get this out. The first thing, starting in 1990, the United States increasingly became a payment-driven lifestyle culture. In other words, if you could have the payment, you could have the nicer car. Car leases showed up and allowed consumers to get even nicer cars at lower monthly payments.
How much do you want to pay a month?
How much you want to pay a month. So
That
this
whole
payment
thing.
culture came up there. Then you had 2008 when the real estate crash. Isn't it interesting that Texas required 20%? There's 3 of us that lived in Texas. Remember that?
Yes.
It
Hey, I
saved
lived there too, man.
It
Yeah.
saved the state of that simple.
The fact that Texas did not have home equity that you could pull all this
You
cash
could-
out of your house,
bingo.
it
You
made
could not
it,
do it in Texas.
No, and guess what
Okay.
happened?
but there was-
2008,
but there was the
2009.
cushion.
I love that.
That
So then what
was
happened?
What this
It
was.
forces responsibility.
That's right. It was not the nanny state saying what you could and couldn't do. It's a simple regulation that
Check
says
this out.
we will not allow houses to be over leveraged. So 20% equity always has to be there. In other words, if you put 30% down on your house and you want to put 10% that you want to get a home equity loan to put the pool in, the bank says, oh, that's okay. You'll still have 20%
Yep.
equity. There you go. There's your pool. But California, they let you jack all the way up to 5%
So guess
equity.
what happened, Tom?
So taking out
which-
HELOCs and all this fun stuff.
When you and I were in California, 2007, 2008, what happened to Riverside County?
Riverside County became Poland after World War II.
But do you know what happened? Do you,
No, tell us.
It was horrifying.
60% of the homes
Right.
Yeah.
were done.
Because they were all
60
over leveraged. They
I'm
all
talking about
defaulted. What
the-
happened?
Dude, property value dropped 60%
Think about
in
Phoenix.
Riverside
Tell them
County.
about the
Remember Phoenix?
deserted.
Oh, even Phoenix. Those two were
Las
very
Vegas?
close.
Pat, tell them about the brand new neighborhoods that were deserted. The lawns were dead because people had been evicted. These are $250,000 houses. They were sold to people that should have been renting at a more sensible thing.
course.
And these were all repossessed. So now the bank owns this neighborhood that looks like Poland after World War II. Complete desolation. No grass.
Scary.
It was
It
terrible.
looked like
So
a
who's
movie.
the fault on that? The banks? The people?
Standards.
The realtors?
Standards.
No,
No, let's
Standards.
talk about it.
Everybody was involved.
California allowed the financing regulations, NINA and other things, to go on in its state. States like Texas did not. What did California end up with? That.
And where were the
Nina.
vast
No
majority?
income, no assets. That's Nina.
Nina, that's right.
Where were the vast majority of subprime lenders based? Countrywide, New Century.
Tony, right?
California.
Anthony Mazzello. What was his name?
He
Anthony
was
Mazzello.
orange. Anthony Mazzello.
And Ditech.
He always
was
scared me because he was
Good,
orange.
well-spoken guy.
Hey,
though,
listen.
that guy.
People around
Patrick.
here love scary orange
Patrick,
people.
remember
Relax.
Ditech, the great big billboards on the
Ditech was
405?
one.
You know, 0.00%.
New Century was another one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but here's the point. During that time, while he's saying this, and they're talking about Texas, which the point they made, I'm talking to a realtor in Plano. You know what the guy says? He says, "Oh, during 2007, 2008, Plano, worst area, took a 10% hit, maybe 15% hit. We didn't feel it. So that's the benefit
That's
of
the
that.
cushion. That's the
That's
cushion.
the benefit of that.
And now, who implemented those rules?
The no income, no assets.
No. Why Plano didn't
the
fall
state
to
of
its wayside?
Texas, every state
So it's a state
can
thing.
make every state can make credit card and credit and lending laws.
Okay.
Texas said 20% buffer. Period.
20%
All right,
buffer.
I'm going to drop a big housing bomb
Here we
right
go.
now. If
Let's
Barry
go,
Habib-
Danielle.
Here we
Bring
go.
it on,
If
girl.
Barry Habib was in the room, he would
Oh.
backslap me. It would
Habib.
hurt.
Oh.
As of yesterday's data,
Or the girl that was here with Barry would back off.
there are more homes, if you count multi-unit and single-family, under construction since 1974.
New
One-
homes?
Under construction right now.
Yeah.
Since 1974, we haven't been building this many houses and apartments. Okay? 1 in 4 homes today, according to CoreLogic, 1 in 4 homes today are being bought all cash by investors.
Good.
How is this going to end? Anybody heard of Zillow? How is this going to end?
1 in 4 new
And that's why home
homes
price-
being built are being purchased cash
1 in
only?
4 home sales in America today are being purchased by investors
Investors.
who are levered. They're
Mm-hmm.
buying all cash, but the cash is levered because they're taking advantage of the zero interest rate policy at the Federal Reserve.
You give me free money, I
And
take
they're
it.
jacking up home
These
prices
aren't
like you've
individual
never heard
investors.
about.
These are conglomerates,
If you're
right?
Joe Q who's trying to buy your first home, even if you've saved up the down payment, you're still going to lose because the investors come in with all cash. But they're playing with somebody else's money. And they're levered to the hilt. And they're like, this is not the same thing as the subprime crisis. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. There's more debt involved.
That's right,
Oh,
there's more.
there's no question. There's more debt involved.
But
But
there's also an
But it's
interesting point here.
institutional money.
yeah.
Hey, Pat, what
Yeah.
percent?
And how quickly do you think they're going to hold on to these homes if the peanut butter hits the fan?
Well, we know what's going to happen.
The
there.
investors?
Hey, real question here. Instapoll, what percent of the total housing in America is owned by the top 10%?
What percent of
What percent of the total housing in America is owned by the top 10%?
I'm going to have to write this down.
the
I'm going to learn
total
something.
housing wealth?
No. What percent of all the homes
Correct.
of total housing in America is owned by the top 10%? I'm going to say 70%.
45%.
Okay.
And it's moving like 7% a year. So guess what? If
In the
they're-
last 2 years?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
Only
now-
the highest
Yeah.
FICO
So
scores
now
are
watch
getting
this.
mortgages. Highest FICO scores.
If she's right and the bubble pops, these people have got leverage problems. If the bubble doesn't pop, she's still right. But if the bubble doesn't pop, who's the new landlords? Who's the serfs and lords here? You're going to have 10% of America owning over 50% of the housing in America in 14 months.
Because Airbnb is hot, VRBO is hot.
I'm not surprised about that
Good
number.
way to make.
And then
not
guess what?
surprised by that.
Guess
Steady
what?
income.
The top 10% are now
because
landlords.
because what was the number on top 10% of stock market? What was the top 10% of the stock
No,
market? What is it?
89%. It's not on that, but it's 89%.
Okay, I mean, so I'm not surprised by that. Matter of fact, it's lower than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be around 60,
And this
70%.
takes us back to why there will be bad policies in the future. Because if something goes wrong with this, which it will, when you have wealth inequality you haven't seen wealth inequality like this since prior to the fall of the Roman Empire.
So-
when you have wealth inequality like this, even Republicans will vote policies in that you would consider to be socialist.
You're saying what? More stimulus?
No, I'm saying
1978,
UBI?
Jimmy
No, no, no,
Carter,
no, no.
wage and price controls.
no. Price controls. I think Biden is this close to gasoline price controls. I really do.
Let me
You know what I'm
ask you.
talking about? Carter, 1978, controlled everything.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about what's going on right now at the
Tried to.
ports. Okay, Long Beach, LA, that gets 40% of all imports in America comes through Long Beach and LA, right? And the prices have gone up from 2,000 to 25,000, 30,000. One guy was talking about in 60 Minutes this Sunday. I don't know if you guys saw the 60 Minutes about the whole what's going on with the ports. He says, I have $1 million that I had to spend on the containers. He says, I can't take it out, but they're forcing me to pay the rent, even though I have no way
course.
of taking it out right now, right? Okay, here's a question for you. What percentage of the tariffs on China are still on? What percent of tariffs?
We have not removed any tariffs on China,
all the tariffs are still there, right?
Correct.
Okay, fantastic.
which sticks it to American companies.
I want to ask you guys a crazy question, and you tell me. I'm actually going to be curious to know what you guys are going to say about this. This port situation is worse than we think it is. Christmas is going to be a weird Christmas while you're buying gifts. You ain't going to get the stuff that you want to get. If you haven't started Christmas shopping, folks, you're probably not going to get the gift you want to get for your friends. You're probably going to be Christmas shopping at CVS and getting some shitty gift for your family and whatever's left over for you, because that's what ends up
it's
happening.
going to be a
Gift
record
cards.
year for
Yeah.
gift cards.
Never mind
It's going to be a
Christmas.
gift card season. Yeah, hey.
Never mind Christmas. We can't get building supplies.
But we couldn't do it with our building. That's why we just bought a different building. So we got 2 buildings we're buying instead of 1 because we can't get glass.
It's all there. It's just on a boat
Yeah.
anchored off of Long Beach.
Anyways, this is the point I'm trying to make to you. Here's a question I got for you. I'm so curious to know what you guys are going to say. I am so curious to know what you guys are going to say. So if this massive crisis we have at the ports that's taking place, what has Biden done about it? I'm curious. What's Biden done about it? What phone call has Biden made to China? What phone call has Kamala made to China? Schumer, Pelosi.
She's not allowed to make calls.
But what I'm asking a serious question. I'm not
She's in
being
the basement.
sarcastic. I'm not being condescending. I'm asking a very serious question.
No, I'm serious.
This is
She's not a policy
This is a catastrophic event that's taking place in America today. This is not a small issue. They're just not. If this was the other administration, every second would be hearing about what's going on at the port, right? But it's not every second, right?
Yep.
If Biden could, what could Biden do right now to make the phone call? He's done nothing. So here's my trick question for you. Let's see what you're going to say. And see if you already know where this question is going. If your friend, DJT, was president today, okay? If your buddy, you guys are from the same area, Florida, whatever. If your buddy was the president today, do you think he makes a phone call to China?
Are you saying that Biden hasn't spoken to Xi?
If he has spoken to Xi, has anything changed?
No, they actually did finally
They just
speak
said
to
they
each
had a
other.
3-hour
What's
call
changed?
the other day.
What's changed?
Nothing.
I think the call was like last
Bro,
week.
you and I can talk for 3 hours and we can shoot the shit and nothing gets done.
I don't think Biden
Versus-
and Xi are shooting the shit.
Oh, so what are they doing? But here's what I'm asking you here. If Trump was president and you find that this is going on at the ports and they're raising prices from $2,000 to $25,000, from $2,000 to $25,000, hurting the small business owner where that price of $2,000 to $25,000 gets passed down to middle America because the guy said, I have to raise my prices. If DJT, the most hated president of the last 40 years, most controversial president of the last 40 years. Like him or hate him, if he was president today, would he make that phone call and what would have happened? The answer is yes or no.
Would he made the phone call?
Would he have called China and done something to expedite the process and cheapen the cost
sure
to the
they
business
would have
owners?
had some dialogue. Dialogue is good.
Do you think more progress would have been made where we're...
I don't know.
You really saying you don't know?
Are you telling me to say you want me to say yes that Donald would have got it done?
No, Adam, it's not about yes.
Tom,
but let's be intellectually honest.
Let me just ask this question.
He would have made the call.
Let me just ask this question. Here.
What don't we understand? Biden spoke to Xi for 3 hours.
Tom,
he made the call.
Tom,
what are we talking about?
Adam, let me go to the question for you here. Let me ask the question in a different way. Say Clinton's the president. Okay, the guy you like. This isn't like to say Bush is the president. Say Reagan's the president. Say JFK's the president. Say any of these guys are the president. Do you not think a phone call would be made right now to figure something out? FYI,
Yes.
you can't say the answer. You don't know what Trump would have done. You had 4 years of track record to say what he would have done. Do you think he would have called China and said, hey, if you raise these container prices one more time, 25% tariff, 35% tariff. You think he would have done that? You think he would have done that? You think now that China's the richest country in the world, richer than U.S., you think he would be okay that happening during his administration? Wouldn't be happening. He'd be making that phone call. China's sitting there saying, freaking awesome. Give us more money. These guys are idiots. They're letting us do it.
China is, they're really taking, they're taking advantage of the absolute, it doesn't matter what subject you're talking about. The Biden administration is paralyzed. It doesn't, you fill in the blank. They're paralyzed. Paralyzed. They can't get anything done.
And
this
why
is
is that?
frightening. I mean, you had, in 2019, you had more than 1,000 trucking companies go out of business. In 2020, you had like 3,200 trucking companies go out of business, mostly small mom and pops. Why haven't regulations been ripped back immediately to make life on truckers easier? Why? We're talking about executive order stuff here. Just get out your damn pen and sign it. I mean, why haven't we seen more executive orders, period, out of Biden to do what he can?
That was the whole complaint with Biden, that he did too many executive orders at the beginning of his presidency.
When was the last time he got out of? How long did it take him to sign the infrastructure bill so that he could have this huge ceremony on Monday and then go to some bridge that's falling down and try and, quote unquote, sell the legislation after it had passed? What the hell's up with that? Buddy, I don't need you to go do some ribbon cutting ceremony. I need you to be president of the country when it's being eaten alive by inflation. Do something.
So what do you think he is actually doing?
No,
Nothing.
Wait.
Adam, I don't think what you
guys,
said
I've
about
asked
that
the
was
question.
fair.
No one's given my answer. I asked the question. Here's my question to you. If Trump's president today, if DeSantis is president today, if Manchin is president today, pick any of these guys. But specifically to Trump, because we got 4 years of track record. That's what I'm specifically asking about. If he was president today, how would he handle what's going on with China? I'm curious. What do you think? You're saying, I don't know. Very naive answer. You're a smart guy.
I'm not saying that.
What do you think he would do?
You framed the question.
What do you think?
What should have Biden have done? He made a phone call. He spoke to Xi for 3 hours. You're framing as if he didn't
who gives
speak
a
with
shit
him.
if nothing happens?
I'm asking you.
There's no economics out there.
What would Trump have done if he was president today in regards to China and the shit show we have at the ports?
I'm sure he would do something about it.
Like
whether
what?
it was good, I'm sure it'd be something
There would have been
bombastic.
Do
I'm
you
sure he would have
think-
threatened Xi, whatever.
Do you think China would be a little bit more careful to bump up prices? 60 Minutes, the guy says. He says, the 60 Minutes guys, what's the name? Not Lester Holt. What is the guy's name? Anyway, the 60 Minute guy, he speaks very calm. He says, do you think China is taking advantage of the crisis and raising up prices on containers because they can?
Duh.
Here's a guy's answer. He says, it certainly feels like it. Adam, from $2,000 to $25,000. From $2,000 to $25,000.
Adam, who produces 90% of the containers in the world?
China?
China. China manufactures 90% of the
I don't know.
containers in the world.
Okay, so what should be done?
No, it's
There-
not.
We're
How
saying
many-
what should be done.
I'll answer the question.
Okay,
I think
let me ask Patrick's question a different way. By now, where there have been multiple delegations of advisors on airplanes to Beijing, sitting down, ripping doors open, multiple meetings saying, we're going to get to the bottom of this because you're not going to rape our country. There would have been multiple delegations, and if there was no response, as there has not been a response, all they do is continue to raise prices. If there was no response, then there would have been retaliation. And I'm speaking for a Joe Manchin. I'm speaking for a Bill Clinton. You don't watch what's happening to Americans happen to Americans and have your press secretary stand up in front of a podium and say, most economists don't see inflation. Denial is not. It's not a strategy.
No, it was no economists. No economists that live on my floor say there's
I
inflation.
thought that was attached to the infrastructure bill. That's a separate question.
Look,
when she said
saying no economists see inflation
attached to the infrastructure
or the
bill.
infrastructure bill,
everyone sees the 6% inflation.
You know what?
That's
You
a
know
different
what?
point.
I agree with her. The infrastructure bill is not, because you know what? Joe Biden got up and said, this infrastructure spending bill is going to create tons of union jobs. It's like saying, we're officially, formally announcing to you that we're going to piss away taxpayer money by having unionized positions. That's what the entire Obamacare, $600 billion, whatever the hell it was. Obama said after he got out of office that it accomplished nothing for the economy. Zero, zippo. If you're going to do this the way that it's always been done, pork spending, Psaki's right. It's not going to create inflation. It's not going to create economic output. It's not going to create shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm going to answer your question directly.
Please, because this guy is
he did not.
I don't know what he would have threatened him. He would have done something. I don't have the answer here. What Trump maybe would have done.
Mr. Sosnick, you asked us a question. You said, "What do you guys do for Thanksgiving?" Mm-hmm. We answered. We went through the process. I answered it
as well.
I know, but you haven't answered it. Your answer is, I don't know what he would do.
Trump would have made some threats to nuke them. I don't know. What would he have done?
Come on, I was quiet.
Sarcasm, which is fantastic. You know, it's great. So that means you're not answering. You're copping out with
Pat,
go ahead.
I've answered it 17
Mr.
different ways.
Stop.
Axel,
I was quiet.
Freaking cool guy.
I was quiet while you were not answering. So let you be quiet
Go ahead,
while I'm
Biz
answering.
Doc. Give a case study.
So, Q4 of last year, we started to see an abating of COVID stats. Not as much as we wanted, but they started to move. Q1 of this year, we saw a little bit more abating of COVID stats. And what happened in Q1 of this year, Pat? All the economic stats started coming out. We started realizing what was going on with employment.
USA Today map of COVID cases rising.
And I believe in Q1 of this year, DJT would have called China and said, hey, COVID's turning the corner. We're getting good visibility and line of sight on a lot of these economic stats. WTF. And he would have had an economic summit in Q1 of this year when we had the stats and we looked like we were moving on COVID. And at that point, we also had unemployment. We had labor stats. We had a lot of other things going on. And at that point, he would have said, holy crap, we're being gamed. And he would have made the phone call and had an economic summit.
That's what I'm
Q1
saying. There would have been
year.
multiple delegations flying over there.
There's my direct. Yes. Multiple
Multiple
he would have had a
delegations.
trade delegation, Import-Export Balancing Act, threatening of the tariffs, coming back with specifics.
Think about how many times Mnuchin was on an airplane. Think about how many times.
I believe it would happen.
Janet Yellen has not. Janet Yellen hadn't gotten. She couldn't find an airplane. This is ridiculous. And by the way, winter's coming. Winter's coming.
Tell us what this chart is.
To Tom's
Danielle.
point, there was a window of opportunity. To Tom's point, a month ago, four of the states had rising COVID cases.
Yeah, I'm not rewriting history. I'm just going back. Where were we Q4, Q1, and what sort of stats were you talking about?
There was an opportunity then. The opportunity window is closing because now you have the vast majority of U.S. states with rising COVID cases. The vast majority.
Yeah, we're back looking internal. And get this
all the
problem
cold
solved.
states where you have to be
indoors.
indoors.
Is Texas cold? Is Oklahoma cold? Is Arizona cold? Is New Mexico cold?
Read the map, Danielle. Those parts are
started.
steady.
It started.
The reds are growing. All the cold states.
And Texas,
all the Northeast.
Texas is red. Oklahoma is red.
No,
Arkansas.
Texas is not red, Danielle. It's gray.
What?
Texas is red, buddy.
Texas is red. I'm not blind.
Texas is red. You okay?
Oh, I'm looking at the actual map
box,
here.
The cat's really confusing you, isn't it?
No, it's okay.
So what's going on there with the gray? New cases are steady.
There is no
gray?
steady.
So why the hell does it have a gray box there?
Because sometimes cases hold steady.
So where's the gray? Why show it?
Adam, you okay? Because there is no gray. It's either growing or shrinking. There is
so
no gray.
what the F is the point of showing a gray box there? Right
call
there?
the editors at USA Today and tell them to
Okay,
take
it's a
off the gray.
stupid map then.
Well, then I'll send a memo. I'll tweet out to
I'm
USA
looking-
Today if it makes
I'm
you
looking
happy.
at Texas. That's gray. And
I don't
I'm gonna tweet it out right now.
You're showing me Texas is not gray when it's fucking gray.
Okay, I'm gonna tweet out.
Unbelievable.
Editors at USA Today.
The state of Texas is gray. You're like, no, it's not gray. It's red. Okay.
I love this.
It's red. So
if
the
I
way
don't
I see
like
it
the
now. I
debate,
see it
click
now.
on a
the way
map.
they have it, the
Holy
designer.
shit, it's the
to be
stupid-ass
honest with
design.
absolutely, I agree.
Okay.
The design is horrible. So
Please remove.
Nancy, can you please help these guys out? Help
Seriously.
create a better design than these guys have.
So if you don't
Why
like
not
the
just
debate,
have the
Okay.
states
So
dumbest design I've
so
seen.
let me read that though, because what she is talking about is what's going on right now with COVID cases. What page is that, by the way? What page is that? We had it as something we wanted to talk about because Danielle. Okay, there's page number 7. Let me go to page number 7. So. U.S. COVID cases start to rise again as the holiday approaches. This is an NPR story. It's a worrying sign for the U.S. ahead of the holiday season. Coronavirus infections are rising in more than half of the states. Experts warn this could be a start of an extended winter surge. The rise is a turnaround after cases had steadily declined from mid-September to late October. The country is now averaging around 83,000 cases a day, about 14% increase compared to a week ago. That's a pretty solid increase in a week, by the way, and 12% more than 2 weeks ago. Growth in cases isn't unexpected given the patchwork of COVID-19 immunity across the U.S., where about 60% of the population is fully vaccinated. As we head into the holidays, COVID risk increases with more people traveling and socializing indoors, but we also have some things that are helping, like more vaccines and kids getting vaccinated, says Dr. Ashish Jha, Dean of Brown University School of Public Health. The other day I saw a video of health and services going to houses, knocking on doors on apartments saying, do you need COVID shots? Do you need vaccine shots? Do you need vaccine shots? This is in Houston. This ain't in California. This is in Houston. And then Disney just announced that they're doing their cruises. Did you hear about Disney's cruise?
No.
So they just announced they're doing cruise. Disney Cruise is back.
Vaccine only?
But kids 5 years and above have to be vaccinated to get on these cruise ships. Here's what's crazy about it. 90% of Disney cruises leave Florida. What are you gonna do with Florida? These kids you're leaving a state like this. You should be doing it more from California than from here. So
or Seattle.
Wait, what's your Twitter handle again? Do you need to Google that?
Sos Talks Money. So
is this something that concerns you with COVID cases going up?
honestly, I had one sign this week that we are officially moving past COVID. There was one sign.
The country concert you went to, or the
I was at that country concert. We could talk about that too. Uber is now back to doing
No
Uber
masks.
Pool. Did you hear what I said?
Uber Pool is back.
Uber Pool is back.
I let USA
Thank you,
Today know,
Danielle.
and I
Thank you,
copied you on
Danielle.
it.
And they also just
Appreciate
launched
that.
I said,
Uber
please.
One.
I said,
So
they're
what's my
bothering
point?
Adam.
What's my point? That's a dumb design.
What is your
What's
point
my
today,
point?
Adam?
Uber has eliminated Uber Pool. Lyft used to have Lyft Share all throughout COVID. You could not do Uber Pool. None of that.
Hey,
It is officially and now
when
option
I landed
again.
in Fort Lauderdale,
So
they're
what-
like, you don't have to wear a mask anymore in Uber.
well, welcome to Florida. So,
No. This is nationwide.
Okay. So that told me Uber, big tech, Silicon Valley, California, they said, all right, we're back to business as usual. That's a big deal. To put two random people in a car together, in a ride share, the fact that that is now a thing, that's a telltale sign that we're moving past this pandemic.
Got it. So Uber Pool tells you we're moving past pandemic.
Well,
it doesn't tell you.
it's an indicator.
Is that Uber Pool only for Florida or across the country?
I don't know. I've
It's
only
probably
taken
only
it.
Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
And,
And which-
and Florida,
and-
if you look at it, is what color?
It's apparently gray/blue.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Florida.
Are we all right here? Do we need to get an optometrist immediately?
I just think it's a dumb map.
Can somebody
I
call
mean,
911?
Just make the map. You put the boxes on top. Like I'm looking
Adam,
at Florida.
should've been a
Adam,
graphic
USA
design.
Today
It's
will
horrible.
they will get back to me shortly. I promise.
Let's do that.
So,
Okay.
so
I'm a fan
so,
of USA
So
Today,
the benefit is you living in Florida and you have no idea what it's like in California. Because I told you I was in California this week, last week, for a wedding, and at the wedding I went to crustaceans. I told the story last week. What happened? So California
You
is.
tried to use the bathroom.
Yeah, he's like, everything is a mask. You can't eat inside. You can only eat outside. As of November 4th, the only people that can eat inside are the ones that are fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
And, you know, they have their passport. And I don't carry my vaccination passport card. I don't like to do that. Because
Right, I know, 'cause
I'm
it's
concerned about
very heavy.
I don't like to carry my
Yeah, it's
passport,
very
or
heavy.
when
You-
I'm traveling domestic, I don't like to carry it.
You just have to take a photograph of
So,
it on your
yeah.
phone, at
After
least
you
to get
end
into a
up
restaurant in New York.
Peeing on the side of the building. What did they say to you?
Nothing. They said, thank you for not using the bathroom inside. So I'm like, anytime. You know, California
Anytime.
standards have changed. But no, they let me use the bathroom. But the challenge was, you know, it is still mask county.
Did you
It's-
actually have to use the bathroom, or you were thinking, all right, let's see what they say about this?
Actually, Jennifer had to use the bathroom, and I was asking on her behalf, but I also wanted to have some fun on my way.
I figured that. I know you
because my bladders are once a day, twice a day type of deal, but it is
That
what it is.
was way too much information.
Yeah,
And
well,
that
the
was
people that know me, they know what
too much
that means.
Marathon.
And it had nothing to do with 4 Arnold Palmers.
Yeah, no, nothing to do with 4 Arnold Palmers.
Minimum.
Okay, so were you going to say something about these COVID cases? Like you're saying this was their opportunity. They had their opportunity to ... Like how bad can this look be if this thing goes...
Oh, look. Right. Okay. There are two sets of individuals in America who are upset by inflation the most. I mean, a lot of people are. Like the $9.99 Oscar Mayer bacon. I'm still upset because we eat like a pound a week in the house, and I'm like, no bacon for you. So I didn't buy it. I'm like, fuck, sorry.
Whoa.
No.
Whoa, no bacon.
I didn't buy the bacon.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. That's
You didn't buy the
ridiculous.
bacon just
I
out of principle?
Didn't buy
You can afford the bacon.
out of principle. No.
Your kids are not
And you
happy
know what?
right now.
You know what? On Wednesday, they put a coupon in my little Tom Thumb flyer, and you can get limit 2 with my
Hold
electronic
on.
coupon
The
for $3.99
Economist,
each.
Danielle DiMartino booth is using coupons to go grocery shopping?
I always use coupons, don't you?
Wow. look at
Completely.
you. No, I don't know. Coupons.
It's pretty easy, even for you. Like they have something
think
called an app. Do you know what an app is? They have an app, and you just
Guys,
download the
never
digital
heard of
coupon.
an app.
Adam will understand all of that stuff when he
Okay,
gets married.
so
and
Keep
has
going,
kids.
keep going. You were
All
talking
right.
about
43.
You were talking
So-
about
43.
bacon wrapped bacon.
Stefano Ricci suit. but-
So there was an opportunity. But who's upset by inflation the most? The lowest income earners.
Lowest
we get
income,
that. We get
yes.
that, right? And people over the age of 65.
'Cause
who
they're
are
on fixed income,
incomes.
yeah.
And who holds the vast majority of savings in America?
People
Old
over
people.
65.
And what happens when their state turns red if they're over 65? A lot of them.
They have to stay home. They get mandated and da-da-da-da-da.
Well, in the case of my mother or my aunt who are in their 70s, they feel like they're kind of compelled to stay home until they get to the until their little state turns blue again. So you've got
they're
all
more
of these savings in the hands of older individuals who are freaking out about inflation.
Didn't they just get a Social
So let
Security
me
bump
tell you,
of 5%?
there's a whole.
though?
It gives a whole new meaning to winter is coming.
They just got
Because
more money, though.
if
That's
you
what
look,
I heard.
If you look in the aggregate, U.S. household savings in absolute numbers are where they were prior to the pandemic. All of that stimulus money that was pissed into the wind is gone.
No, it's not. It's in the EBITDA of companies and
Oh
wealthy
hell yes! You
people.
really think
It's
General
the
Motors?
trillionaires.
You really think that-
billionaires
I'm
are,
agreeing with you. I'm just
$5
saying-
trillion richer.
Kelly Blue Book came out a few days ago and said
Half
that
of that is Pat.
Kelly Blue Book came out a few days ago and said that the average car in America is $46,000, $46,300. New car prices have gone up 8 months in a row. They've taken incentives away. Nobody can convince me, nobody can provide a convincing case that because there's a semiconductor shortage, by the way, car inventories are rebuilding and they're rebuilding rapidly. Nobody can tell me that all of these car makers didn't raise the prices of cars more than they needed to because they could. Stick it to them.
What are you going to say? You're going to say, no, you don't have a choice. You got to do it because inventory's down. So here we go. I can increase it.
Yeah, but their inventories are rising again. So again, winter's coming.
Yeah. But by the way, let's go back to the Psaki story because we never fully read that article about what she said, her comments. So Psaki confronted claims no economist is predicting higher inflation from massive spending bill, the political insider. NBC Peter Alexander, Americans are seeing their dollars, their paychecks stretched right now. Why should Americans now be concerned that injected another $1.57 trillion or more would raise inflation? Psaki answers, because no economist out there is projecting that this will have a negative impact on inflation. Psaki said on Monday, suggested the spending spree would actually help combat inflation.
Jesus
Oh my
Christ.
God. Economists across the board will say this will actually help reduce inflation, address inflation over the long term. She said if Psaki can find no economist who thinks inflation is a growing problem, she needs only contact former Obama economic advisor Larry Summers, who said we are going to see inflation of a kind we haven't seen in 30 years, which has already happened since 1991.
We've
Again,
been
though-
screaming a lot today, but let's give a quick summary for our wonderful audience, and thank you for being out there. And if you like it, hit the subscriber there. There's three things, and you can help me here. Three things that will help inflation. Increasing the value of the money, which means increasing the interest rates. Second is causing the government's current deficit to be shrunk, so the government's borrowing less. And lastly is to shrink the money supply. those are not Republican or Democrat things. These are aren't these just the sliders that moderate inflation?
Okay, so
we just printed how much money, and we increased our budget deficit in the current year by this spending. So we ran 2 out of the 3 really up to red line, did we not?
We did. What's important to realize, though, is that the growth of the money supply is what matters, not the absolute level of the money supply. So in June of 2020, the money supply in the United States was growing by 30%. That's collapsed to 3.8% because Congress is paralyzed.
This is M1.
This is M4. This is the biggest aggregate you can have. So that's gone from 30%.
The whole enchilada.
The whole enchilada. 30% growth rate down to a 3.8% growth rate as of September. So we're not injecting more money into the economy. I'm actually going to do something that. I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier, Patrick.
What's that?
Psaki's right that this particular infrastructure spending bill is not. In fact, Tyler, can you pull up the quill again and go to the last page? My week. There you go. No. The very last page. That right there. That's when all this starts to kick in. It's like it peaks out in 2026.
Can you explain to us what that is?
That is, a 10-year infrastructure program doesn't hold a candle to stimmy checks. And the money's going to trickle out into the economy. And as Biden has told us, it's going to create lots of union jobs. Yay! And this is why this will not, in and of itself, ignite inflation, because you're not actually going to get out there tomorrow with private companies to make sure that you don't waste taxpayer money and get these damn projects underway immediately. It takes a long time. Permitting. Again, you're working through unions. And so it's by definition going to be inefficient. But that does not change the dynamics at the ports. That does not change the dynamics about rental inflation. It doesn't change the dynamics about the damn bacon. All of that inflation is very real right now. But this is going to be like the Obama infrastructure plan was. It's going to be
a scary sight, by the way, looking at
nothing. 2026 is when we're going to see the highest impact on GDP, which peaks out at just over 0.5%. Woohoo! Yeah, but you give people money directly. You direct deposit $5 trillion into people's checking accounts. Yeah, it's going to get spent.
Hey, Tyler, can you do me a favor and pull up the Bloomberg article about Powell's 5 benchmarks for inflation? If you have that with you. And then I just sent you a picture as well. We'll cover that here in a minute on what Fauci just said, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, Bloomberg Powell 5 inflation benchmark, and it'll come up. This is a story from yesterday. Boom, right there you go.
He's pulling this up.
So check this out. Check this out, Tom. So
Powell's that puppy out.
So Powell's 5. Okay, go to see if you can get rid of the. Okay, there you go. Number 1, are inflation pressures broad-based? In August, Powell said the spike in inflation up until that point was largely the result of price rises in a narrow group of goods and services directly affected by the pandemic. That's no longer the case, right? So he was talking about across the board, beyond the usual suspects. Yep. Gasoline, okay, fantastic. Go to the next one. Number 2, are price rises moderating in those goods and services that have experienced the biggest run-ups? So while there were some signs that was happening a few months ago, it's no longer so clear-cut. Yes, used car price inflation has come down a lot from its 45.2% in June, though it's still running in excess of 25%.
And Manheim just released new data that shows that through the middle of November, every used car prices have accelerated. It just takes a little while to show up in the CPI data. So that 25%, it's going up.
Okay, so that price is going up, and he says annual prices rise for durable goods in general, though clocked in at 7.3% in September, biggest increase since 1981. Okay, fine. Let's go to the third one. What is happening to wages? Powell told the Jackson Hole conference that he saw little evidence of wage increases that might threaten excess inflation. Worker pay has picked up since then as employees have taken advantage of plentiful job openings to quit in record numbers in search of better opportunities. I know you got data on that, which we'll get to that here in a second, right after this. So we believe the U.S. is entering the tightest labor market conditions since 1950s. Holy moly. Number 4, what is happening to long-term inflation expectations? Fed policymakers pay a lot of attention to what Americans are thinking about prices because officials believe that goes a long way to determine where inflation goes. If workers and companies are fearful of prices spiraling onward, they'll act in ways that will help bring that about. Okay, go to the 5th one. Let's see what the 5th one is. Number 5 is, are longer-term global forces still pushing down inflation? Over the past quarter century, inflation has generally been low in the U.S. and across the world. There are signs, though, that some of the forces may be becoming less powerful.
China's sticking it to us.
No question about it, because they can't. And no one's fighting back and saying anything
Exactly.
about it. So, okay, so you were talking about labor forces of people quitting.
Okay.
You want to get into that?
There are two, and I think this is the last chart that that we're going to pull up from my weekly. Go back a page. Focus in on the bottom right hand of page 9. All right. So you pay people a ton of money to not work, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a deficit compared to the prior.
And they don't, right on cue.
And prior to COVID, this is the trend line, the yellow dotted line.
Damn.
We're 7.8 million jobs below that line. Some of it's because people have retired early. A lot of it's because people have gotten used to not working. And a lot of it is also because if you're an employer and you see this 20-month gap on somebody's resume, is that an attractive potential employee? Or do you want the guy who's one of the 4.4 million who's like, I haven't quit working. My skill set's hot. I haven't. None of my worker skills
respect that.
have atrophied.
Yes.
I want to hire that person. So that there's the haves and the have-nots in the labor force. And the have-nots have been taught to behave like socialists. We're going to pay you to not work, and then you're going to get used to it, so you're not going to work. And by the way, you're not just going to not work and we're going to pay you for it. You're going to be unemployable at the other end. While companies have accelerated automation, you've seen investment in R&D and artificial intelligence, any form of software. You've seen companies automate out of existence millions of jobs. But if you have the skills, you can name your price. So there is a great big divide going right down the middle.
Skills always win, man. It's so great. This is such a great.
Skills do always win, but we took skills away from people by paying them to not work, and now
Of
they're
course.
unemployable.
Yeah, of course.
Well,
of course.
what do
If
you mean
that's
that-
good policy.
Why do you say
No.
that they're unemployable when there's a work shortage and people can't
Okay,
hire enough
I'll ask
people?
you a question.
If you have
you-
demonstrated that you're going to run out on me, why take a risk on you versus her?
Or do you have the basic skill
Yeah,
set?
but the question is whether.
'Cause a
or not-
lot of
of
those
course, she's
7
going to be okay. What's the whole thing that we say at Dunkin' Donuts? If you don't like the long line, apply for a job. There's a lot of people that.
They don't want those jobs.
Exactly. And there's something that we're not talking about that we can.
And by the way, plus,
is how
if-
many
if it's-
people
if-
are
if
not
it's-
going back to their shitty ass jobs because they made $1 billion from crypto. There's a lot of young people that are 20 years old that started investing in Dogecoin or in Bitcoin or in Ethereum, and they were worth negative money prior to 2020, and now they're worth 50 grand, 100 grand.
I don't think
There's
there
a
are
lot of young people out
7.8
there.
million
They're
of
not
them.
going to go back
Yeah,
in the workforce because they've
That's
made
a-
money from crypto.
Okay, and I'm happy for them, but I don't think they probably comprise nearly 8 million people.
I'm just saying young people.
Okay.
A lot of young people.
It could. So look, there's a few things you can take into account with that. One is that community, but what percentage that 7.9 you think that is?
Yeah,
What do you
maybe
think it is?
10%. I don't
Okay,
know, not
let's
even
say a big number like that. It's probably not that big of a percent. It's probably 3 or 5%. But let's just say that's what it is.
Sure.
Out of the 7.9, let's take some that are 65 and up, 63 and up, 62 and
They're
up.
like, I want my Social Security now.
Yeah, and they're just kind of like, listen, man,
And they
I'm
were in-
out.
and they
I'm
were in-
good.
Oh, and
Some
by the
of
way,
those people
and by
are
the way,
coming back
Tom,
to the
Tom, you're
workforce,
going to have
though.
the answer to this question. What is the difference in income if you collect Social Security at the youngest age versus starting at the oldest age to collect?
62 versus 70, you're saying.
How much does?
Well,
how
my,
much,
my monthly
lot
check,
different, yeah.
my monthly check is when I'm 65 is big.
right, but if you wait
Not
until
if you wait till you're 70, it's way
If
bigger.
you wait until you're 70,
Yes.
the differential between the two is 30%.
Oh, yeah.
If you
For
can wait.
waiting
right.
5 years.
Yeah.
The longer you can wait, the bigger your
You're
checks will
talking
be.
about
is what you're
59 and a
saying.
half to 70.
Yes, I'm saying if
Yep.
if you cover that, so a lot of people who left the workforce early and started to collect Social Security early have left a ton of money on the table because they're getting all these stimulus checks. Their house is worth more than it's ever been worth, and they're like, "Screw it, I'm quitting."
You know, this is
So
really
I'm going to start
interesting.
collecting my Social Security early. But how's that going to feel in a few years?
Those people are going to go back to work.
You know,
by the way.
there was a
We are
time.
going to see seniors come back into the workforce,
Yeah.
and you know what? They're going to be more employable than the younger people who have been replaced by
I don't think
by
so at all.
by
Why would older people be more employable?
They're going to be more employable than the person who was replaced by a kiosk. And companies have
Totally disagree.
Companies have lamented the fact that people who are 55 plus have better work ethics than younger workers
55 plus,
who want,
maybe,
who
not
want
65
flexible
plus.
hours, and they don't want to come into the office, and they want to make sure that they can. I mean, okay, here's a little anecdote. talk about the 4.4 million who are quitting their jobs. A buddy of mine runs a huge logistics company for, I don't know, the biggest telecommunications company in the country. But he runs a logistics division. So he has a new employee. After 2 days, the guy quits. Why? Because he doesn't like the color of the safety vest. It's orange. And he didn't like even though it was required to be worn on the floor of the factory, it's just.
So you don't get hit by a forklift.
Everybody's got to wear the orange vest. And the guy, after 2 days, he's like, I can get a better job. I don't like the orange vest. Bye.
I don't think it has to do with the orange vest.
Job.
He probably just wanted a better job.
No.
The orange vest wasn't the.
Then why did he take the job in the first place?
I don't know. I don't know who the kid is, but you're not going to leave a job because of the color of the vest.
No.
Is this like
person, no.
LGBT anti-what?
This person was in their 30s.
Orange vest thing?
No, it's
what's wrong with orange vest?
It's not about that. I think the cat's really confusing you today.
So what it is
You're
about the orange
vest? You're colorblind.
So what's the point of the orange vest? Tell the story then.
He didn't like the way it looked.
Oh, stop it.
I'm not.
You knew that.
Let me tell you.
Okay, so you think that's the reason he left the job because of the color of the vest?
That is what he told his boss.
That's what he told his boss.
After working the job for 48 hours. That's what he said. I refuse to wear the orange vest. And the guy's like, it's policy.
You know what?
But this is where I'm going. This is where I'm going. Well, you know where this leads me to? Here's where this leads me to. On what she just said, that's 7.8 million. On what he just said. And you look at that number, and if I'm Amazon, if I'm Walmart, if I'm any of these companies, I'm sitting there saying, we kind of got to figure out a way to not rely on workers because they complain too much. They constantly want more. They want to do this. They want to do that.
Automate,
and sometimes
automate.
So Amazon just did this. This is what Amazon just did. And here's what their numbers are looking like, right? Amazon has slashed the cost of its Go cashierless store technology by 96% since 2017. This is an insider story. Let me tell you what this means. This means if the cost was $1 million to run this store, now it's only $40,000. That's what this means.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean prices went down. It means the overhead of running this place went from $1 million to 40 grand. So Amazon has radically reduced the cost of its just walkout cashierless store technology, a testament to the company's ability to turn long-term experimental projects into more affordable business offerings. Amazon estimates the operating cost for technology behind a 1,000 square foot Go cashierless store has dropped $159,000 a store this year. That's a 96.4% decline from $4 million a year in 2017.
Yep.
A month before it opened the first location, even more savings are forecasted by the end of 2023. The cost includes payments for using Amazon Web Services, cloud technology, and hiring remote employees who manually verify the accuracy of checkouts and stores, amongst other tasks. Amazon debuted its Go Cashierless store in 2016, creating a convenience store where customers could purchase items through an app without having to go through a checkout aisle. So the consequences of you sitting on the sideline is companies who are innovative, who don't sit around and say, I kind of got to figure this part out. So this is where this takes me. This is where it takes me. It takes me to a couple different places. I want to share my thoughts on this, and I want to hear your thoughts and rebuttal on this. This is where this takes me. Number one. So the first part is where, the whole orange stuff, the guy doesn't want to wear the vest. Yeah, that's probably 1% of the population. Whatever.
There's 4.4 million job
I get
hopping.
that. But the same way this guy's talking about 10% of it is crypto. Only America's investors are 7% is crypto community. So out of that 7% of crypto community, what percentage that made a lot of money? Maybe some of them got in late. So it's like 2-3%. That vest, let's just say 1 or 2%. Fine. Here's the part I think about. Okay, and this is going to sound a little weird, but what the hell is the purpose of us being alive and living? Like, what are we supposed to do? Are we just supposed to sit around, collect a check from the government, and play video games and smoke weed? Are we just supposed to stay home, assume the government's going to send me a check, and I'm going to have kids with my wife, and we stay home and watch Netflix all day long while they pay me $5 grand a month? And that is my life. Like, do you really not think eventually at some point when you're watching these inspirational, aspirational movies like Pursuit of Happiness, like Gladiator, like, any of these movies you can Lean on Me, you sit there and say, what the hell is my purpose? Is my purpose to have somebody give me free money on a monthly basis so it can steal my dreams away? Or do I want to do something big with my life? So maybe my legacy is not going to be worldwide like an Elon Musk or a president or a billionaire billionaire or an athlete or a Hollywood celebrity, but maybe my legacy is going to be regional. Maybe it's going to be statewide. Maybe it's going to be a local community. I was a star that came out of my city and I started a business and we have 200 employees. Or maybe I'm just going to be that cousin that did something special in our family and I inspired my nephews and niece to want to do something big as well. I'm proud of that. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you're the first kid out of your family that got a degree. Maybe you're the first kid out of your family that became a doctor. Maybe you're the first kid out of your family that came out and started a business, raised healthy kids. They did good. They became good citizens. At the end of the day, this whole thing about UBI to me is, listen, the technology, innovative, creative people, they're not going to wait on you to complain. You can complain all you want. They will gradually sit there and say, you know what? Machines don't complain. They produce.
Yep.
And why am I not going to just keep producing machines? So then if I'm a 22, 28-year-old, 32-year-old person right now sitting there listening to this, I'm kind of like, yesterday Robert asked me a question about what would you do in today's economy. I said, everything I'm looking at is finding a way to be irreplaceable. What does irreplaceable mean? What can I do to be irreplaceable? What kind of value do I bring to the marketplace? What kind of context do I bring to the marketplace? What skill sets do I need today that's going to be valuable 18 months from now, 36 months from now, 5 years from now? Am I a good leader? Am I good at working with people? Am I good at solving issues? Am I compatible? Do I get along with people? Am I a good negotiator? Do I build good leaders? What is my value? So if you ain't thinking about producing your own type of value today in the marketplace, you're probably going to be replaced by a machine and a robot. Yep. And this whole UBI concept that people think it's a good idea, all it's doing is stealing your purpose away from life. And what a waste of a life. Ain't nobody want that.
And there's no dignity. There's no integrity.
None.
There's
no.
You have no values you can pass down to your children. Why have kids?
Why do we watch inspirational movies, though? Why do we watch great movies? What happens at the end of the movie when you and I watch a movie that just... Why do you watch Rocky? Why do you watch these movies?
Because you want to be the underdog who comes back and wins.
That's it. That's like in our DNA, is to be somebody. We all want to be somebody. And this free money steals that away from people.
I mean, George Washington look, our founding fathers are spinning in their graves. They fought for freedom. They fought for liberty. They fought for a population that could have a purpose. There have been countless American boys who've paid with their lives, and women who've paid with their lives for this.
Yeah, I don't know. And listen, but here's the part. You know how they say the more things change, the more they don't. Like everything.
La plus ça change.
Yeah, the whole thing where it's like, hey, well, let me tell you, this is the end of the world. No, listen. 50 years ago there was freeloaders. 50 years ago, there was low-income, middle-income. 50 years ago, there was guys that capitalized. 50 years ago, there was criminals. 50 years ago, there was dividers. 50 years ago, there was guys that wanted free money. 50 years ago, there were communists. 50 years ago, there were guys that hated rich people. 50 years, this ain't changing. The only thing that's changing is the following. Here's the only thing that's changing today. 50 years ago, if my wife and I got into a fight while I'm at work and I have a 30-minute drive when I'm coming home, 50 years ago, I probably didn't have a cell phone to call her and get into a biggest fight and say a word I regret because ends up leading to our marriage, eventually leading into a divorce. 50 years ago, I had 30 minutes to calm down by the time I came home, and I'm like, listen, I'm so sorry. Let's just figure this out. We're good? Okay, we're good. We move on, right? 50 years ago, when shit hit the fan, you didn't hear about it till 14 hours later. 50 years ago, maybe you heard it at news, 8 o'clock at night, but maybe you didn't hear about it on the paper the next day. It took a while. So the reaction was, we were more calm when we reacted. Today's like, what happened? Let me post it. Oh my gosh. So the exaggeration of issues today is so much bigger that we are reacting and it's making everything
knee-jerk
big.
reaction.
Yes, that's the only thing. So that's the only part that people have to be
Things
very
are
careful
happening
with.
so quickly these days that you can't even process it.
I agree. By the way, let's go into that story about media, what's going on page 6 with Fox, some of these things that came out with MSNBC. Let's see what story this is. This is a Fox News dominates basic cable. MSNBC finishes behind 29 networks amongst advertisers' coveted demos. So Fox News ruled basic cable. Tyler, can you see if you can pull up a data on this, if there's some kind of a thing for us to look at? Fox News ruled basic cable last week, finishing as the most watched network for the 39 weeks straight. Fox News was the only basic cable network to average 1 million viewers, finishing the week of November 8th through the 14th with an average of Average audience of 1.5 million, while runner-up ESPN settled for 893. Interesting. Then Hallmark Channel, MSNBC, and HGTV rounded up in the top 5, and CNN continued to struggle with a dismal average audience of 483. Wow. The advertisers' coveted demographics of adults aged 25 to 54 indicated that MSNBC also has significant problems. Fox News averaged 245,000 demo viewers to double CNN's turnout of 107. MSNBC averaged 77,000 viewers amongst the crucial demo, finishing behind 29 other cable news networks, including BET, FXX, Bravo, MTV Freedom, Lifetime, Sci-Fi, Discovery, and TLC. By the way, the 25 to 54, okay, that audience, isn't the 25 to 54 supposed to be watching more MSNBC and CNN than Fox? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Isn't the younger audience supposed to be watching more liberal news than watching Fox?
The 25 to 40.
Which is the most important audience, because that's the voting audience. So
Again, I'm going back to Virginia. I'm going back to Virginia.
And also, you have to pull ESPN out of this.
The moderates.
pull it up a little bit, Tyler, to see if there's anything there.
And by the way, runner-up ESPN, that's seasonal because they're in the middle of college football and NFL. And so ESPN always pops up right now. So, but the whole point here is that you've got MSNBC that's ranked 29th. It's not who's leading. It's that NBC without DJT has nothing to say.
Bingo.
And America is not watching a hard left network. It's a simple
Adam,
story.
what are your thoughts? Does this mean anything to you, Adam,
No, well,
this story?
MSNBC's ratings were record level when Trump was in office. So BizDoc hit it on the head. The whole ratings bonanza that they had at MSNBC is because they were just railing against Trump, railing against Trump, railing against Trump. Their ratings were off the charts. Now that he's no longer there, they're going to need to pivot, and they haven't pivoted yet. They're not going to cover all the great things Biden's doing because there's not a ton of it, right? Also, something that Fox News has done well is they've embraced some sort of pop culture. Like, what's the one guy? He's got his own, like, late night show, Greg Gutfeld.
He's good. Yeah,
he's got a late night show on Fox News. MSNBC is politics, 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 politics. I happen to like Joe Scarborough and the show in the morning, Morning Joe. They've got a lot of smart people on there. It's the one thing I watch on MSNBC. But when you turn it on at night and you get the Rachel Maddow show and you get the Chris Hayes, I actually like Brian Williams, but you know that you're getting politics and you know that you're going to get just basically the same old without all the Trump, and they're still covering all the nonsense that Trump's doing. The problem is he's not the president anymore. So they're going to have to pivot. They're going to have to maybe infuse some pop culture, maybe less politics, but it's not looking good for these liberal-leaning
And Brian quit. He didn't renew his contract.
Brian Williams quit?
Yep, he did.
Yeah, in the middle of
When?
middle of negotiating his contract, he said, "I'm not doing it. I got too many cats at home to take care of. I'm not."
That's
coming
my
to work."
kind of guy.
No, but seriously, he didn't say the part about cats. You know, that was
I know, BizDoc.
that was leaked later by a neighbor. But he did say in the middle of his negotiation that I'm done. Right?
Wow, that's unfortunate because he was
That's
actually
the
a
truth. That's a
moderate
true story.
voice.
Well, because he was a balanced.
He's a
balanced
moderate
voice.
voice. Actually, he was my favorite guy at night. So, look, and we can talk about, Democrats potentially going to get shellacked.
So he said he was nearly shot down in a helicopter as he left the executive
Oh,
conference
that's
room.
messed up, man. You're trying Brian Williams.
Yeah.
But the country has basically everything that's happening right now, getting Trump out of there, and now the Democrats probably getting shellacked in the midterms, is an embrace of the middle. That's
middle.
the problem
So there's
in our country, is that the
So
middle is being...
we haven't pulled up the independent chart,
Yes, okay.
which
This is a good segue to go to,
Yeah, that's right. Pull up the independent chart that she's
the
talking.
11%.
Hey, Danielle, I got a question. Why aren't there more people that want to watch a hard left? Where are they? Where are these people politically? Do you have a chart?
They're offended. They're finished with this progressive bullshit. They're done.
But there must be a whole bunch of them that are thinking other ways. Do you have a chart?
Can you zoom in, please? There you go. Go for it.
All right. So here we've got the yellow line is independent. So they've risen up. They're pushing. Looks like they're pushing 20% of the people surveyed by The Economist. Okay?
Adam, are the colors okay?
Yeah. Can you see the colors, Adam? Because we're just a little worried.
By the way, Adam, just so you know, in that chart on the yellow she's showing, you need to look at the left that shows 20%, not the fact that it's closer to 10%.
Yeah,
but keep going. Go ahead, Daniel.
All right,
So-
so I feel like I'm back in high school again with all these bar graphs, charts. Let's go.
among the independents,
1.8 GPA,
they
Danielle,
describe
remember.
themselves
Tone it down
self-described.
for us.
Yeah, math really sucks.
Okay. The moderate is in the middle.
I agree.
In January of 2021, maybe 24% or so describe themselves as being moderate. That has increased in the last 9 months by a sizable amount.
Great. This is good news.
So the middle is rising.
Yes.
And that's why MSNBC's ratings are crashing.
So what news outlet identifies to moderates?
I think
Because
that
it ain't MSNBC and it ain't CNN and it ain't Fox News.
I-
What news outlet
I'm
is
gonna
there
have to
for
push
moderates?
back. I'm going to have to push back because people like Chris Wallace, people like Neil Cavuto, they're extremely balanced.
Neil Cavuto on Fox Business. I love that guy, but he's not on
Okay.
Fox News. He's on
Varney's,
Fox Business.
Varney's not exactly not right. Varney's pretty right.
Varney has his head
But
such
think
up
of-
Donald
think of-
Trump's ass
think
that
of
he can't be held
Brett
credible
Baer.
at this point.
I mean, Brett Baer
Brett
is
Baer, very credible.
Brett Baer is an extremely balanced, true Fourth Estate journalist.
Wouldn't you say the same for Wolf Blitzer, though? I don't think he's super liberal. Wolf Blitzer?
No, I mean,
And I actually like Jake Tapper, too. Seems pretty moderate.
well-
CNN's lead anchor.
all I'm saying is, if you're talking about primetime television, it's you start off. I'm on Neil's show all the time, and
Tell him what's up.
Thank you. I'll tell him what's up. He doesn't really talk that way per se. He's
No, but that's why I said it that way. Because I
typically
want
a
you to
little
say
bit more articulate
Sauce
than that,
says,
but-
what's up?
Oh, okay.
You got me.
Note to self. Thank you.
Keep going. Neil is not
Please make your
Sauce's
point
guy.
while Adam is trying to get on
Yes.
Fox
No,
News.
but I actually think that Fox News has garnered a broader audience of moderate watchers because.
Fox
Yep.
Business you're talking about.
No.
You're not on Fox
No.
News.
And where is
Danielle.
Brett Barrett
You're-
at prime time?
But you're talking about Neil Cavuto. He's on Fox Business, separate
Neil
channel.
Cavuto has a Fox News show every single day at 4 p.m. Eastern, FYI.
On Fox
I'm on
Business.
it often.
Fox
Fox
Business.
News.
You're on it. Fox News? Oh, man. I
By
gotta
the way, a
turn
lot
that
of people
on.
here are
he's
saying that if you want to hear moderate or independence, you find them on YouTube. You don't find them on media, which is actually a very good.
That's
point.
fine.
That's a fair assessment too.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point as well. I'm
we
just
I would
saying.
say Wall Street Journal is also pretty independent. Little left, but I would
yes.
say they're independent.
Wall Street Journal's a little left.
Center. I would put them
No,
center is where I would put
Wall
them. I wouldn't
Street
put them
journals.
far right.
I'm putting them center right. Wall Street
Okay,
Journal.
fine. Yeah, center right.
A little left for your
The-
taste,
the-
maybe.
the edit-
Center
No,
right.
sir-
I'm
certainly-
for me, taxes is where I start.
Certainly, the editorial team leans right, but that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. And they're a voice of reason. And I've been a Wall Street Journal subscriber since I
Tom,
was
somebody gave you a cool shout out.
baby.
They said, "Love BizDoc's dad jokes." Listen, the fact that Cole J4C said that, you just made Tom's day, maybe his month. The fact that
Yeah.
you like his dad jokes, you don't even know how important that is to him. The fact that his
big
dad
deal.
jokes are. They catch the right kind of attention. Okay, so let's talk
Thank you
about
very
China.
much.
What happened with China here? Go to page 6. China becomes richest country in the world, overtakes U.S. to grab the top spot. This is an MSN story. China is now the world's richest nation as global wealth tripled over the last 2 decades, and China leading the way and overtaking the United States for the top spot. The world's net worth rose an unprecedented $514 trillion in 2020 from an earlier net worth of $156 trillion in 2000, with China taking the largest single share, nearly 1/3 of the world's income. China's wealth launched to $120 trillion from its previous $7 trillion in 2000, from $7 trillion in 2000 to $120 trillion, an unspeakably colossal growth from its days before joining the World Trade Organization, which accelerated its rise to power. The U.S., meanwhile, has experienced muted increases in property prices, nearly doubled its net worth over the same period to $90 trillion, $30 trillion less. So what does this really mean that China is now worth $30 trillion more than U.S., Danielle?
Damn it, we got to print money. We got to print more money.
That's
we
the
got
key?
to catch up.
Is that what we got to do? Danielle, what do you think about this?
That was a dad joke.
I think that everything that we're seeing with Evergrande is emblematic of the
Backfire.
fact that there's been a wee bit of speculation in the property sector in China that is backfiring, to use your word, because we've seen the Chinese stock markets come down quite a bit. So, but the speculation, the government has been trying to rein it in. This is their 4th major attempt to rein in speculation in the property market, and the Chinese are so uncertain about where they can park their money that's safe that the Chinese government can't convince them to stop putting their wealth into real estate. Otherwise, they're just trying to get it out of the country.
Yeah, a lot of investors right now, what I saw was
What
reading
happened after the Jack Ma thing? Oh,
Exactly, and how much wealth he's losing, and how scary it is to be a billionaire in China today, because Xi is coming after you. He's not even playing around.
You're in the center of the bullseye.
Yeah, and not only that, the other part that's starting to scare a lot of people is outside investors who were investing in China are worried if they can get their money out of China. Right. So that's scaring others to say, listen, we were going to put a couple $100 million, we were going to put $100 billion, we were going to put this much money. We're just going to kind of pump the brakes and go elsewhere, maybe to a place called India, which is getting the investments today
and India
over
is
China.
Hot right
India
now.
is so hot, it's not even funny. I think
India has no infrastructure to speak of, so the opportunities are insane.
Massive.
And the demographics in India compared to China are insane.
26.4 years old.
So it's
the younger age, you're saying.
Yeah,
China's older age.
China's 38, India's 26.
A lot of it has to do with the one baby policy that backfired on them, right?
If you can rein in the political corruption in India, which they're working on, then India is going to garner a lot more foreign direct investment in coming years.
How long is Modi going to be in power for in India?
I'm not sure. I don't. We can Google it, but.
You think about running against them? Is that kind
I don't know if I'm going to compete with Modi, but India's the superpower.
But don't they have feral cats over there, like ones that aren't fluffy?
So let me show you this story of this guy that was a former political prisoner. What he had to say when he was being interviewed by PBS. If you want to put that Twitter clip up there, I want to get your thoughts on this, folks. Pay very close attention to what he says here, and tell me if you agree with what his notion is about U.S. becoming an authoritative regime. Play the clip. It's too loud. Lower the audio a little bit. Can you help him out, David or Kai or George or Dinkin or Robert or Mario, Mickey, I don't know, Thais, anybody show up and see if we can figure out a way. How do we increase the audio here? Not happening.
Not
playing. Are we gonna hear this or no?
What are we? Check. Oh. On behalf of Tyler, this is not a Tyler thing.
This is not a Tyler mistake. Oh, that's fantastic. Good for you, Tyler. Blame it on Jorge.
Tainment Tyler.
Okay. Oh, do we have it or no to hear it? Okay, go for it.
Is it blind?
No.
No audio. No audio here.
Do we know why we don't have audio? It's a basic video, guys. You know he is speaking. He's saying words.
Are we supposed to be like lip reading? Because
I'm at this point of the
actually,
game.
Well, here's the quote.
With the current state of Adam's eyes today, that's not going to
That
happen.
map was really
I've let
not a
USA
good
Today
map.
know. Okay,
Yeah,
they're working on it.
Not a good map.
If you can't do it, I'm just going to play it off my phone. I don't know if you guys can
can't-
pull it up because all that background noise
Adam, is the color of his shirt okay?
not happening. Okay, so
little
let
red.
me. What's this guy's story? I really want you to hear what he has to say. PBS. What's his name? Weiwei. Okay. PBS Weiwei. So folks, I want you to hear this story of this man who just did an interview. He's a former, I want to say, a political prisoner in China. And during the interview, he tells the interviewer that U.S. is an authoritative. This story is this on what Cernovich? Okay, it's on Cernovich's account. Let me see if I can pull this off.
Oh, you just go to Twitter. It'll be right there.
Cernovich. If you don't have it, I'll try to get it from here. I'll go to his media. Here we go. All right.
Your book. You were describing the directives of Mao Zedong during the Cultural
Just press the video.
Revolution
Yeah.
that would be distributed publicly every night. And then you write, this is your quote, they served a function similar to Donald Trump's late night tweets while in office. They were the direct communication of a leader's thoughts to his devoted followers, enhancing the sanctity of his authority. So, do you see Donald Trump as an authoritarian?
I don't, if you're authoritarian, you have to have a system in supporting you.
Crazy.
You cannot just be an authoritarian by yourself. But certainly in United States, with today's condition, you can easily have an authoritarian. In many ways, you already in the authoritarian state. You just don't know it.
How so?
Many things happens today in U.S. Can be compared to Cultural Revolution in China.
Like what?
Like people trying to be unified in certain political correctness. That is very dangerous.
Interesting how he says Trump is not an authoritative because you need a supportive system, like meeting the media to support you, what you have to say, other political people. Maybe you can go out there and do what Xi is doing. Do you agree with his sentiment, the fact that U.S. is an authoritative state?
I think we're on the cusp of it. I think we see a lot of things going on, vaccine mandates and other things. I think in many ways we're on the cusp.
And Danielle, what do you think?
I think that this entire post-pandemic era has made a lot of people who we were talking about, the 7.8 million gap that's not in the labor force anymore. I think that this whole experience has made a lot of Americans sheep to where they're not thinking for themselves. And that in those types of environments, it's very easy for an authoritarian state to come in and move in because people have been thought to not think for themselves. And if people aren't thinking for themselves, then by definition, you're on a very slippery slope to being able to control their thinking, control their actions.
Yeah. Let me think.
I think they call it brainwashing. Brainwashing.
A phrase is coming to mind decades ago. Useful idiots.
Do you know what Trump just said? Trump just said earlier today, he says hospitalizations rising among fully vaccinated in the U.S. Would you agree with him saying that? He's saying hospitalization rising amongst fully vaccinated in the U.S. Do you think he's just saying that because it's a marketing thing or no?
I think there's statistics
What do you
out there.
think?
No. Hey, I'm going to jump in here. I was sitting by a doctor in the plane yesterday. I don't normally talk to people on planes, but there I was talking to this doctor, and he has seen a rise in breakthrough cases, but they're in and out in a few days.
Okay, so you want to pull that up on who really said that? Because it wasn't Trump that said that. You know who said that? Here's who said that yesterday. His name is Dr. Anthony Fauci is who said hospitalization is increasing for people who have taken the vaccine. Okay?
Yeah, because now we're on the booster thing, right?
No,
Pat?
not that one. This was November 17th. So whatever November 17th. It's the one I texted you, buddy.
It says right there 3 days ago, CNBC.
No, it's the one from yesterday. Okay, there you go, 16 hours ago. Hospitalization rising amongst fully vaccinated in U.S., Fauci says. What we're starting to see now is an uptick in hospitalizations amongst people who've been vaccinated but not boosted. So what is this now? Now this next phase is got to get you boosted. See, I know you got the vaccine, but we got to get you boosted. And another one, and another one. As cases of COVID-19 rise throughout the U.S., health officials warned that an increasing number of fully vaccinated people are being hospitalized or going into emergency rooms. The concern about the wanting immunity against COVID infection comes from the FDA is expected to authorize a Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine booster shot for all adults 18 and older. What we're starting to see now is an uptick in hospitalizations amongst people who are fully vaccinated but not boosted. And it's a significant proportion, but not the majority by any means. So, look, the part that I think frustrates people the most is gaslighting at the highest level, propagandas at the highest level, force at the highest level. We used to be able to choose. Today, you are forced to do things you don't want to do. You sit with somebody and somebody tells you, makes a case on why you ought to get vaccinated, you go get vaccinated. Somebody makes a case to you why maybe you don't need to get vaccinated, you get canceled. People are starting to get a little worried about whether they can speak up or not. Now, so this guy, when he's talking about authoritative and what to do, the only side that can probably pull off an authoritative type of an environment is not the right. And the reason why I say this, let me explain why I say it. So when you hear Rogan talk about, I think Rogan was with who yesterday or 2 days ago, was himself, Alex Jones, Tyler. Who were they with? Were they with Timcast, or I don't know who they were with. They were with somebody's podcast 2 days ago. Were you aware of who it was, or you weren't following it? Yeah.
I didn't catch it.
And he was making a point, the fact that you just can't have an opposing idea today. When you can't have an opposing idea, but on one side, whatever you say, the media is going to come and back you up and you can't get canceled, that's a form of authoritative. The media, mainstream media, essentially becomes the authoritative's tool to say whatever they want to say and get away with it. Fauci foresees full vaccination, including booster shots. This is September 3rd. Yeah, we're seeing that all over the place. Anyways, there's a reason why people are concerned today, and this guy's making a point. Do you agree with what he had to say?
About booster shots or what?
No, about authoritative. About
Look,
the
about the Chinese guy.
the Chinese
So look,
guy.
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. There's something that we've come to find out in America is something called the pendulum effect. Every 4 to 8 years, the country swings a little bit to the left or it swings a little bit to the right. The reason that we went from George W. Bush to the right to Obama 8 years later, Obama to Trump, is because they thought that he went too far left. The reason that we went to Biden is we thought that Trump went too far right. So the reason that I think the Democrats are going to get shellacked in the midterms is because they think that the country under Biden, under a House and under a split Senate where Kamala has the deciding vote, that the country is going too far left, as Danielle so poignantly explained in her beautiful bar graph. That was an amazing bar graph. So our country figures it out every 4 to 8 years. The hyperbolic talk doesn't get us anywhere. It's follow the facts. You're a numbers guy. Every 4 to 8 years, the country says, I don't like the way the direction we're going with Trump. Let's give Biden a shot. Biden's kind of falling asleep at the wheel. Let's give someone else a shot. It's the same old story that we've come to learn.
All right. Answer.
Here's where you say, I agree with you, Adam. Go ahead.
Because that's going to happen. Answer this question. Answer this question.
Go ahead.
As the pendulum has swung back and forth, as you so eloquently describe, has wealth inequality in this country gotten wider or gotten narrower?
Wealth inequality has gotten wider. You're correct.
Okay, so that's going on in the background. Does wealth inequality create the situation for social unrest?
It always does.
Okay, so it's continued to build in the background, regardless of where your pendulum is.
Yes.
That's problematic.
What's your point?
When people are desperate,
Yeah.
and increasing numbers of Americans are desperate like they would be in a third world, there's no developed country in the world that has wealth inequality like we do. You've got to go to like Pakistan. I mean, there's no developed country in the world. So if people are desperate, they'll do something. And it doesn't matter what side they're on or not. The wealth inequality in and of itself makes the country vulnerable to becoming authoritarian. People will be willing to listen to somebody who says, rise up against the elite. Why do you think Donald Trump won? Because he was going to drain the swamp. And why do you think that resonated with so many hardworking Americans?
Yeah.
Because they feel like they've been left behind.
And why do you think he did not get elected the second time around? Is because he got a swamp. He was the biggest swamp monster of them all.
Right. So he didn't drain the swamp, but he hit a nerve.
Mm-hmm.
And that nerve is still
That's how he got elected.
That nerve is still raw.
No, it's called COVID. If
Nothing's
COVID
been.
happen, he's
If anything, the nerve is even rawer because the really hardworking Americans who tended to be part of Trump's base are really pissed off now that there's been this attempt at socialism in America, and they have to wait longer at a restaurant than they've ever had to wait. They have to pay more for a gallon of gas. So the vestiges of socialism have left a ton of Americans, just 70 million or so. It's left their nerves even more raw than they were before. That's problematic.
They're vulnerable. They're vulnerable to being led right into an authoritarian trap. I'll give you a great quote. Rise up against the unrest. I'll make the trains run on time. We'll start there. Who said that?
Mussolini.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Why? Because things were so bad that the people were willing to go along with it, and they walked right into the authoritarian.
All right, I have a
So
question.
you're basically saying that Mussolini, we're ripe for a Mussolini here.
I have a question for
No,
Patrick.
Is it ironic that Trump always gets compared to Mussolini with his chin?
I didn't compare Trump to Mussolini. I'm pointing out that what
Patrick.
she just said is absolutely correct. When there's unrest and there's people that have these stifled frustrations and it's broad-based, they are ripe to follow the wrong guy.
Now, who do you think is frustrated?
Hold on. Hello.
We were just talking about wealth and inequality. You paying
So
attention
who's
for the last 5
frustrated?
minutes?
You're saying that it's only on the right?
I'm saying people who are working hard and seeing
have a
people
colorful
get
chart that you
paid
could-
to not work are really pissing off the hard workers. I have a question.
Thank you.
We've got military background here sitting across from me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What happens to countries when states eventually fail to lead. I'm talking about entire states. What happens to a country?
What happens?
You talk about individual states like Texas or nation
no,
states?
No, she's talking
Nations.
about nations.
What happens to nations
There's a fall?
where the politicians fail? Who rises?
People.
No. What type of leaders rise?
Tell me.
The generals,
Okay.
the military.
Okay.
That's where this country could be headed.
You're saying like militia? Like you're
I'm saying
saying
military ruling the country. If we keep having, remember, we talked about it an hour and a half ago. The Republicans and the Democrats are both, whenever they're in office, whenever they're both in leadership, spending like drunken sailors. We've talked about this. So what happens one day when, and if possibly, Americans feel like they're not represented at all? I mean, right now, I've never seen an administration as vulnerable as the Biden administration is today because, again, they're paralyzed. They can't do anything. But the people who run our military, they're doers. They're not sayers. And so
So is that a concern of yours, or are you excited about that?
I think that would be fairly concerning for the United States.
Tell me why.
To be a military state?
What happens
What
then?
are we like, Brazil, 1981? I mean,
Okay. So why do you think that would even happen here, though?
because Americans are losing faith in the reason that independent voters are growing as a proportion of the electorate is because there's an increasing proportion who feel like they're not represented by anybody at all. And you make yourself vulnerable to becoming an authoritarian state, which is what started this whole discussion. But what do authoritarian states look like? The leaders tend to be militaristic dictators types, not wishy-washy Joe Biden, who can't get anything done.
That's how Chavez got power in Venezuela.
That's exactly how Chavez rose. I lived in Venezuela, and I saw it right before, and that's exactly how Hugo Chavez rose to power.
I'll make the train run
Are
on
you
time.
basically saying that a general is going to run for the presidency
I'm saying-
and win, or are you saying that the military is going to take over?
Thank you. That's
authoritarian-wise.
I'm saying that.
Now, do you actually
we're
believe
rendering
that, or
ourselves
are you
vulnerable
just
to this
giving
if we
a?
don't legislate for the people? You mentioned three things, right? The deficit needs to come down, right? Interest rates need to come up.
Right.
What was your third?
And that third is the money supply. You got to control the money supply.
Okay,
and
all these
we're-
things. Are we going in the right direction on any of it? Okay, money supply is coming down because we can't legislate until after the midterms when then the Republicans are going to start
No,
spending
the
money on
money
what they want.
supply has had a temporary moderation. If you extend that back 18 months, it's grown. So we are redlining with certain moments of moderation. We're redlining
The
all
growth
three.
of the money supply has come way off. You have to wait until after the midterms, and then the Republicans will spend on what they want to spend on.
Danielle, I'm agreeing with you. It's come off. It's moderated in the most
But
recent months.
I'm asking somebody
But
who
when you go back,
who
it's-
served in the military. You pay attention to your leaders if they're strong leaders. If our country can't find any strong leaders, they're going to pay attention to the people who are strong and running our military. I'm just talking about the possible end game. You brought up the word Patrick Authoritarian. You played the video. The guy from China says that we're vulnerable.
Yeah, but the point he made that stuck with me is the reason why Trump couldn't be an authoritative guy is because you need the systems to support it, right? So what I wish he would have asked, the question I would ask him, tell me what's the system?
Mm-hmm.
What is the system? Is the media part of the system? Is it educational system is part of the
Congress, the
system?
military,
is conduct?
FBI,
I want to know
CIA,
that,
all
right?
of these
media,
things.
everything.
Okay, fine.
All of these things.
But
Authoritarian state.
and then what I'm saying to you is that'll never happen on the right. Here's why. Let me explain. So yesterday we're having this conversation together. Yesterday we're
By
having
the
this.
way, we agree on that.
Okay, so let me explain to you why. Here's how this works. So here's how this works. You know how two kids are playing, and they're using the toys. Okay, they got their favorite toy sitting there, and they like a lot of the same toys. So Adam says, Adam, you go first. Pick your first toy. So knowing Adam, he takes a little doll, the cat doll, whatever. He takes that doll. I said, okay, that's your
Taking
doll.
a G.I. Joe,
All right.
Pat.
Then it's my turn. I take that little car, whatever the car is. Then he takes his own thousand, and then we're going to go, right? Okay. So the left and the right are sitting in a room together right across from each other. They're going to say, okay, left, you go first. Okay. Left goes first. You know what? We're going to take the educational system, and we're going to influence that. Shit, that's big. Okay, we'll take the church. Okay, cool. Most of the church is conservative. Fine. What are you going to take next? We're going to take mainstream media. Damn, I should have taken that first. Damn, that's powerful. Okay, we'll take the military. Okay, cool. You got military. Okay. We're going to take, virtual government, social media, all in Silicon Valley, and they're going to be on the left. We're going to control that. Freaking A, I should have thought of that. Let me see what okay, we'll take a lot of the crypto community because a lot of the crypto community, they're libertarian. So it's center-right, but it's on the right. Fine, we'll take crypto. Yeah, we'll give you that. It's only 7%. It's not a big deal. They're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now you look at the left, what they got. They're stacked with things that they got. Stacked. Union, left, stacked with what things they got there. So now the right is in there saying, we kind of screwed up. What are we going to do now? Okay. So in this instance, the reason why I say the right cannot be authoritative is because the system doesn't back up the right. The only person that can be authoritative is somebody from the left because they have majority of the system. And if somebody strategically from their left truly wants to be authoritative in America, what do you got to do? Here's what you got to do. Strategically.
You got to make the people sheeple.
First thing you got to do is change the tax code for churches. That's what you got to do. So if a pastor from stage says something that is out of line, you got to remove their tax code. You can no longer take money, and that becomes, okay, if you're going to go that direction, that's how you got to do them. Number two, the system on how military is being indoctrinated, you need more people like Milley who had CRT, who had all this other stuff and soften up the military. That's the strategic move you got to do. That's what you got to do. Number three, what do you do with crypto? What you do with crypto is regulate the shit out of it, so making those people disappear because they're starting to become a pain in the ass because some of these guys actually have money. We don't like libertarians being rich because they already don't give a shit and they want to be left alone. And now they're the type of people that are going to say, screw you, you can't tell me what to do because I'm a damn libertarian, and these crypto people are libertarian. If the left wants to truly be an authoritative state, those three organizations you got to go take out. Now, if the right wants to create that freedom for everybody to choose, you got to kind of start producing some universities. You got to kind of start educating people. You got to kind of start talking about how great capitalism is. You got to start selling the dream. You got to be attractive. You got to get that younger audience. You got to get the people that are telling the story the right way. And then some people are going to sit there and say, you know what, this is kind of starting to make sense to me. So I don't.
Yeah, I mean, who on the left is coming out and saying teachers' unions destroyed jobs, teachers' unions destroyed families, teachers' unions prevented mothers from being able to rejoin the workforce? Who's going to come out and say that?
Yeah, of course they're not going to say that. And to me, the other day I made a comment about teachers. People flipped out. I said, look, there's about 40% of teachers should be fired because they flat out suck. There's a lot of
They're
teachers
not accountable.
Not only are they not accountable, they don't like their jobs.
They don't care.
Listen,
You're
let
low,
me tell
dude.
you.
They don't like kids.
Let me put it to you this way. If I ever was a front desk clerk, you should fire me because I'm probably not going to be a good front desk clerk. If I was a front desk clerk.
You're a bit ADHD.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a good front desk clerk, right? If I was a waiter, you should fire me because I'd probably be asking you to learn a lot more about you, and I'm going to forget the fact that you wanted drinks and your burger is going to come with onions even though you said no onions. I'm going to forget about it on the way back. And you're going to be like, freaking A, how many times?
you'd remember the onion thing.
Yeah.
Pat.
Yeah.
Let's not
Matter
go,
of fact, if
let's
you,
not go that extreme.
if you ask for onions, I
You
wouldn't
ain't
bring
getting
it.
onions, buddy.
Our restaurant would have onions.
86 the onions, the whole restaurant.
The point is, there's a lot of bad teachers out there that should get fired.
Completely
they should
agree.
not be teaching today.
And that's what we learned during COVID.
Well, at least they got a good shot of the BizDa.
Yeah, we just lost.
And the babe.
I believe we're back.
Frozen. Are we back or no?
Yes.
Are we frozen? Okay,
back.
folks, if we're back, just say we're back. So I'm going to read this Mitch McConnell story.
We are back.
The
This is
last
December
one,
3rd,
and then we're going to
right?
wrap up. Page 8, if you want to go to it. Here's a
10,
Mitch McConnell story.
9.
Tom, here's a Mitch McConnell story. McConnell government funding fight could drag into 2022. This is a Washington Examiner story. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell warned Congress could be embroiled in a protected fight over 2022 government funding legislation due to major differences with Democrats over spending levels and policy provisions. McConnell dismissed the possibility that lawmakers could come to an agreement on a year-long spending measure by December 3rd deadline and said he instead anticipates a stopgap measure known as continuing resolution lasting into 2022 will be necessary to keep the government open. The democratic measures increased domestic spending by 14%. The measure also cut core border security funding despite the current illegal immigration crisis along the southern border. So what do you think McConnell's going to do?
I think McConnell's going to hold his ground. I think McConnell wants for the Democrats to own the increase in the debt ceiling so that the midterms can be as ugly as humanly possible.
Will he be successful?
So far, he's held the line.
How ugly do you think midterms are going to be? The record for Obama is 61 or 63. You think it's going to be worse than that?
It could very, very possibly be. You cannot have you can't have anybody say that inflation is good for the economy. I mean, this is a bad situation right now. It really is. And by the way, inflation might start to come down later in 2022, but by then, too many families will have been hurt by this. Too many families will have been completely ignored, dismissed, lack of leadership. And they're aware that there's a lack of leadership. Biden's approval ratings, Congress's approval ratings have never been lower than they are.
By the way, let me ask you, in a situation like this, you know how sometimes you hire somebody and the guy comes in, he's just not doing a good job. Who's the first person that goes on a sports team when the team starts losing? Who's the first person that gets fired when the sports team starts losing? The coach.
The
Coach.
Okay. In a
Not
situation,
the GM that got the players, the coach.
the coach he's the first person that gets fired. GM typically stays, right?
Trust
okay.
me, I went to the University of Texas.
Okay.
We fire the coach often.
Okay, so check this out. Today, who gets fired? Kamala Harris gets fired. They bring Pete Buttigieg in. That conversation is creating a lot of momentum, by the way. It's not like it's just hearsay and some bloggers writing about it, DemocratsSuck.com. Some real, NBC, CNBC, people are writing about the fact that Pete may be the new VP. Do you think that's a good strategy for them to make to change Kamala because she, based on the stories we hear, is not getting a lot done?
And they have 2 Supreme Court justices that they're scared to death that if the midterms go, that they'll never get them replaced if they die after that. And so therefore those 2 justices will go to the next president, which will probably be conservative. And so they're thinking maybe we just put Kamala in one of those places.
I saw that. Which, by the way, Supreme Court, she has to work. As a VP, you don't have to work. You can hide. You can't hide as a Supreme Court. You have to actually work.
Well, the VP fly around the globe giving out wreaths when somebody else dies.
She doesn't even cut ribbons. I mean,
or deliver funeral wreaths.
But she wants to go to the Olympics, no? And they're trying to help her out without having to go to the Olympics. The whole boycotting of the Olympics.
Boycotting of the Olympics, yeah.
So do you think it's better if they do bring, think about it from purely a marketing. They hire you as a marketing firm. Is it a better look to go get Pete instead of Kamala?
He's getting a lot of airtime.
If I'm a Democratic strategist, I say, look, what I just said, you can follow what I just said about the Supreme Court and everything like that. Listen, let's make the swap now. Let's figure out a way to do this. Because midterms are midterms and we're in trouble. My over and under midterms is 70, by the way. And so following that, now you've got it solved. Let's put her on the Supreme Court. Let's get one of our retirements done.
When's the last time a vice president was actually replaced? We're talking about replacing her during Biden's term. Is that what we're talking about? When's the last time that happened?
Spiro Agnew under Richard Nixon was replaced.
Well, I'm not
Nelson
talking about without getting.
No. Spiro Agnew was replaced by Nelson Rockefeller.
Okay.
That's the last time that we intentionally replaced a vice president.
Gotcha. And what was the reason for that?
So there's precedent.
There's an economic scandal that Spiro Agnew got in regarding.
There was a scandal. So this has nothing to do with the scandal. That just has to do with ineptitude. Why are they looking to replace Kamala? By the way, not a Kamala fan. Why are they looking to replace her?
She's one of the most polarizing figures in the country, and she's made a bad situation in the Biden administration
Didn't they know
worse.
that up front before they nominated her? And
I actually don't think they knew that, because the moment they nominated her, she showed up the first 2, 3, 4 days. I don't know if you remember. After the first 3, 4 days, people got pissed. They made sure she wasn't anywhere.
She disappeared before the election.
So I don't think they knew that. We got to go?
That's
okay,
right.
we got to go.
Okay.
Anyways, all right, listen, gang. This was Blast. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, because you can give us a thumbs down. And then subscribe to the channel as well.
Is that actually real now?
It's actually real now, apparently. I missed the thumbs down button.
Holy moly. What's the schedule for next week? It's Thanksgiving.
Are we doing podcasts twice next week, or once? Do we know? We're doing just once? Why not Thursday? Because what?
It is Thanksgiving.
Well, we may do something. I don't know. Because I am in town. We're not out of town.
Pat.
What happened? You want me to check my schedule? Oh, and FYI, gang, here's the other thing that we're doing. I don't want to forget to do this. We want to make a lot of people's day during Christmas. So here's what I'm thinking about. Can you put up the site so people can see it? If you can pull up the site, please go to the website. I want any story you know, family, friend, cousin, coworker, who due to COVID, they're working their tails off. They're doing their best. They're really trying to go out of their way to be good parents, good workers, good small business owners. But maybe they just need a break and they need somebody to make their day. I want you to go to the link that we're going to put below here, 2021 holiday giveaway. Nominee, go a little lower. Don't play the video. On who you want to nominate. This could be anybody you know that's working hard, a parent, a single mother that's got 2 jobs, Maybe we pay her bills for the month of Christmas, for the month of December. Maybe we get a car, an SUV for husband and wife and fill it up with groceries. Maybe we take them to Disney World. Maybe we just do them a FaceTime. Maybe we bring them on the podcast. I don't know. We want to make a bunch of people's days, and you as the person nominating someone will also get love. So if you do have somebody, please go through the criteria. Let's put that link below in the description section. Send anybody that you know we're going to follow up with you and ask you more questions and do a little bit of due diligence, but hopefully we'll be able to go out there and help make many people's days.
I'll be in my Christmas hat on December the 16th, so that's when I'm headed back to studio, so I'm wearing my Christmas hat that day.
You're going to be here with us December 16th?
December 16th.
Can't wait to
Looking
do that.
forward to it.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.